My wife is a beautiful CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526 Qianjin Hall. In the hall, the rest of the Han family left, leaving only Han Kiwei, Han Daozheng and Han Qiufeng. Su Chen asked, "Old Han, has the Bei family returned all the assets of the Han family? Did they do anything?" Han Kiwei smiled. "Some small moves are inevitable. However, the difference is not big, only a few billion. I guess it's the small moves of the subordinates." Then, Han Kiwei took out a bank card and handed it to Su Chen respectfully with both hands. "Mr. Su, here is 10 billion. Please accept it." Su Chen smiled and said, "Old Han, what are you doing? I'm not doing this for your 10 billion reward." Han Kiwei said, "The old man understands. But you helped our Han family get back more than 100 billion assets. This money is our heart. Please accept it." Su Chen refused for a long time, but was still forced into his pocket by Han Kiwei. In this way, Han Kiwei smiled. Su Chen was helpless. Finally, Han Kiwei and others stayed at Sun Zhaoxin's house for a long time. However, what they said over and over again was all about thanking Su Chen. Su Chen was almost numb after hearing it. Of course, he could understand this family. It was indeed too difficult to get back assets of more than 100 billion. Almost, the entire Han family would fall into the bottomless abyss. Finally, after thanking Su Chen for the 1800th time, Han Kiwei and Han Daozheng finally stood up. "Okay, Mr. Su, I won't say any more thanks. From now on, your business is our Han family's business. If you have any instructions, just say it directly, and our Han family will never refuse. I won't bother you anymore. I have to go back quickly to deal with the assets returned by the Bei family." Su Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. On the side, Sun Zhaoxin asked, "Mr. Han, it's almost time for dinner. Otherwise, you can have a meal with me before leaving." Hearing this, Su Chen looked at Sun Zhaoxin fiercely. "Haven't you heard enough of this morning's thanks?" I almost vomited after hearing that. Fortunately, Han Kiwei and Han Daozheng both refused. "No, thank you Mr. Sun for your kindness. We have a lot of things to do at home, and it's a mess. We, father and son, have to go back to take charge of the situation." After that, the Han father and son thanked Su Chen again and left. Su Chen breathed a sigh of relief. He turned to look at Sun Zhaoxin and said, "Just now, if you really wanted them to stay, you could have dinner with them. Anyway, I don't dare." Seeing Su Chen's frightened look, everyone burst into laughter. Sun Zhaoxin said a little embarrassedly, "I just suddenly met the patriarchs of the 8 major families in the provincial capital. Such high-ranking figures, I instinctively want to get closer to them." Tan Yangshan smiled and said, "In the future, you should restrain this instinct. With Mr. Su here, you just need to get along well with Mr. Su, and no one else matters." Sun Zhaoxin chuckled, "Of course. Mr. Su is my top leader now." Su Chen shook his head and smiled, "I don't dare to be one. Your top leader should be your wife next to you." Everyone laughed. Zhu Qingdian was immediately shy. Sun Zhaoxin said, "How about we arrange dinner now?" Su Chen said, "I'm not hungry yet. It's just right. I have to go out to pick some medicinal herbs, so I won't eat here. You guys eat first." At this time, Tan Xiang interrupted and said, "Mr. Su, can I go with you? It's just right. I want to treat you to a meal." Su Chen was stunned. Tan Xiang had said a long time ago that she wanted to treat herself to a meal, but she always missed it. Seeing the pleading look on her face, Su Chen nodded. "Yeah." Tan Xiang jumped up with joy. Sun Zhaoxin sighed. "Okay. It seems that I, old son, still don't have as much face as the beautiful lady." On the side, Zhu Qingdian patted him gently. "What do you think? Except for me who was unlucky enough to fall into your hands, I have no choice but to accompany you for dinner. Who else would be willing to eat with a big stupid bear like you?" Hearing this, Sun Zhaoxin's face fell immediately. Everyone laughed again. Su Chen actually liked the atmosphere here. Soon, Su Chen took Tan Xiang away. Tan Yangshan also told Tan Xiang to listen to Su Chen. Tan Xiang nodded repeatedly. After the two left, Sun Zhaoxian smiled at Tan Yangshan and said, Mr. Tan, Zhaoying and Mr. Su may have a chance. If they succeed, you will win. Tan Yangshan smiled. I just don't know if my daughter will be so lucky. If she can really be with Mr. Su, I can close my eyes even if I die. Sun Zhaoxian smiled and said, don't talk about life or death. With a master like Mr. Su around, I think it will be easy for you to live for more than 100 years. Tan Yangshan nodded. On the other side, Su Chen and Tan Xiang left the villa. The two looked for pharmacies everywhere. However, the quality of medicinal materials in many pharmacies in the provincial capital seemed to be quite average. Some even had counterfeit drugs. Su Chen was quite disappointed. Just when he was about to return disappointed, he suddenly looked at a pharmacy. The sign above the pharmacy read Qianjintang. Su Chen noticed this pharmacy because the smell coming from this pharmacy was much stronger than that of other pharmacies. Then, Su Chen led Tan Xiang in together. Tan Xiang asked curiously, I didn't expect this store to be a pharmacy. I saw it was called Qianjintang, and I thought it sold things for girls. Don't we usually call our daughters Qianjin? Su Chen laughed. Tan Xiang blushed when she saw Su Chen laughing. Mr. Su, don't laugh at me. I really don't understand. Please explain it to me. Su Chen smiled and said, in fact, the name Qianjintang should come from a miracle doctor in ancient times. He once collected many prescriptions and wrote a book called Qianjin Yao Fang. Moreover, this name should also mean that human life is more valuable than 1,000 gold. After hearing the explanation, Tan Xiang's eyes suddenly lit up and said, Mr. Su, you know so much. A young man came up to the side and exclaimed, this gentleman is amazing. He got the origin of our store's name right away. It seems that you should be an expert. Su Chen smiled. Not an expert, but I know something about medicinal materials. The young man smiled and said, since you understand medicinal materials, you should be able to see that the medicinal materials in our medicine shop are much better than those in other medicine shops. In the provincial capital, many medicine shops are selling fakes and inferior products as good ones, but we, Qianjintang, have never done such a thing. Otherwise, the big boss Yu Fei from the provincial capital's business community wouldn't invest in us. You know, big boss Yu Fei is known as the industry's beacon. Whichever company he invests in, it means that the industry has a good future. Su Chen was stunned. Yu Fei? Isn't he Yu Zhenai's brother? Last time in Yicheng, Su Chen heard that this guy was an investment tycoon. It turns out that he is involved in all industries. Even the medicinal materials industry was not spared. Su Chen looked at the wall on the side. Sure enough, there was an introduction to Qianjintang on the wall. In it, it was mentioned that a year ago, Qianjintang was invested by Yu Fei's Fuayu Group. Seeing the name Fuayu Group, Su Chen smiled. This Yu Fei really has a sister complex. He named his group Fuayu Group. Obviously, this is to take Fu from Yu Fei and Yu from Yu Zhenai. Today, just take it as taking care of the business of the Yu family brothers and sisters. Su Chen smiled in his heart. Then, he started to select medicinal herbs in Qianjin Hall. Chapter 527, Grabbing Medicine. Su Chen slowly started to select in Qianjintang. It must be said that compared with other pharmacies in the provincial capital, Qianjintang is not a little bit better. The medicinal materials here are basically of sufficient years and in sufficient quantity, and there is no fraud. The key is that the medicinal materials are relatively complete. Many medicinal materials that have never been seen in other pharmacies can also be found here. Su Chen was overjoyed. Hey, please pack this Pataginoderma lucidum for me. Also, pack this long-bearded ginseng for me. Here is this hibiscus mushroom, this one. While Su Chen was selecting, he asked the clerk to take out these medicinal materials and put them on the counter. The clerk's face was full of smiles. Su Chen can also earn a lot of commissions from these medicines he picked. This sir, you are really an expert. These medicinal materials you picked are not available in ordinary pharmacies. Even our Qianjintang has to wait for a period of time before it can be replenished, and the quantity is limited. Now you buy it. The clerk praised. Su Chen smiled and turned around to continue picking herbs. Soon, he had picked out most of the herbs he needed. Just when Su Chen was about to ask the waiter to help him settle the bill, a young figure walked in from outside. When the waiter saw the young figure, a friendly smile immediately appeared on his face. He hurriedly greeted him politely. "Hello, Mr. Zhou." Su Chen turned around to look over. He saw Mr. Zhou, dressed in a suit and tie, looking quite elite. Mr. Zhou nodded to the waiter and was about to turn around to pick herbs. However, when his eyes swept over the herbs that Su Chen had picked on the counter, he suddenly stopped. "I want these herbs," Mr. Zhou said directly. The waiter was stunned. He hurriedly said, "Mr. Zhou, please pick some other herbs. These herbs were all picked by this customer. He is ready to buy them." Mr. Zhou frowned slightly. He walked straight to Su Chen and said, "Brother, my name is Zhu Dangson. I like those herbs you picked out. Please give them to me." Su Chen sneered. "Why?" Zhu Dangson smiled. "No reason. More friends mean more ways. I really need these herbs. I can give you some money as compensation." "I don't need your compensation. I have a use for these herbs." Su Chen shook his head. Zhu Dangson frowned. "Brother, I'm giving you face, so I'll let you give them to me. If I'm unreasonable, I can just rob them openly. Don't give me face and take it away." Su Chen sneered. "Now, aren't you robbing them openly?" Tan Xiang also said angrily. "Yes. These are obviously picked by us. If you need them, just pick them yourself. Why are you robbing us?" Zhu Dangson said angrily. "All the herbs I need have been picked out by you. Then you just wait for the next batch of goods," Su Chen said coldly. Then, he walked to the counter and said to the waiter, "Let's settle the bill." Zhu Dangson's face immediately darkened and he shouted angrily, "I don't think you dare." Suddenly, the waiter was so scared that he dared not move. The young Master Zhu in front of him was not an ordinary customer, but the son of a shareholder of Kaiyan Jintang. It can be said that he was the young master of Kaiyan Jintang. Naturally, the waiter did not dare to offend him. Seeing that the waiter did not dare to settle the bill, Su Chen's eyes were slightly cold. He looked at Zhu Dangson coldly. "It seems that you are looking for trouble?" Zhu Dangson said angrily. "Boy, I tell you the truth. This Kaiyan Jintang is our family business. If I want to sell it to you, I will sell it to you. If I don't want to sell it to you, I won't sell it to you. Now, get out of my store." "Your store?" Su Chen smiled coldly. "Why did I hear that this store was invested by Yu Fulei? When did it become your store?" Zhu Dangson paused. He snorted coldly. "Humph. You seem to know a lot about Kaiyan Jintang. Let me tell you, Kaiyan Jintang is invested by Boss Yu, but my father Zhu Ziqiang is also one of the early shareholders. Although Boss Yu holds more shares than my father, this store also has a part of my family. Are you scared?" Zhu Dangson looked at Su Chen with a smug look on his face. Su Chen shook his head. "I'm not afraid." Then, he turned his head and said to the clerk, "Let me settle the account." "Pa." Zhu Dangson slapped all the medicines directly. "Boy, I think you just need to be taught a lesson." As he spoke, he shouted loudly, "Come in and teach this kid a lesson." Suddenly, two black-clad bodyguards rushed in. The martial arts level of these two people is not high, just the level of Mingjin warriors. Su Chen smiled coldly. "Throw him out of Kaiyan Jintang." Zhu Dangson pointed at Su Chen. The two bodyguards immediately reached out to grab Su Chen. Su Chen made a lightning move and grabbed the two bodyguards directly. Before they could react, Su Chen suddenly pulled them to the middle. The two bodyguards collided directly with each other. "Ah!" Before the two could react, they screamed. The next second, they were knocked unconscious by each other. Su Chen flicked his hand lightly, and the two bodyguards instantly drew an arc and flew out of Kaiyan Hall. For a moment, Zhu Dangson and the young man were stunned. You. Zhu Dangson pointed at Su Chen, his voice trembling and unable to speak. Su Chen stepped forward. "What did I say?" Zhu Dangson was so scared that he almost fell down. He hurriedly ran away for a long distance before turning back and angrily said, "How dare you hit someone from our Kaiyan Hall? You are in trouble." Behind our Kaiyan Hall is the president of the provincial capital chamber of commerce, Mr. Yu. From now on, you will have a hard time in the provincial capital. Mr. Yu will definitely teach you a lesson. Su Chen raised the corner of his mouth. "You are talking about Yu Fulei, right? Okay, I'll call him now." As he spoke, Su Chen picked up the phone directly. Zhu Dangxin and the waiter were both stunned. They didn't know what Su Chen meant. Soon, Su Chen called Yu Fule. Yu Fule was shocked when he received Su Chen's call. He answered the phone with surprise. "Mr. Su, why are you calling me? I said that when I got up this morning, the magpie kept calling outside my window." Yu Fule was very good at talking. Su Chen smiled. "Mr. Yu, you are too polite. I'm in your shop now." "My shop?" Yu Fule was shocked. Su Chen said lightly, "Qianjintang on Cheoang Avenue. I was selecting medicinal materials here, and I happened to meet the son of Zhu Ziqiang, a shareholder of Qianjintang, named Zhu Dangxin. He wanted to snatch the medicine I had selected, so I beat his bodyguard, and he said you would teach me a lesson." Hearing this, Yu Fule was shocked. "Mr. Su, please wait, I'll be there soon." Su Chen smiled, "Okay," and hung up the phone. Zhu Dangxin looked confused. He stared at Su Chen. "Who did you call just now?" Su Chen smiled and said, "It's the big boss you mentioned. Didn't you say that he would give me a taste of his own medicine? I'll ask him to come over and see what kind of medicine he will give me." Zhu Dangxin said angrily, "Nonsense. What kind of person is Mr. Yu? How could he rush over just because of a call from you? That's nonsense." Perhaps to boost his confidence, Zhu Dangxin spoke very loudly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, ding-ling-ling, Zhu Dangxin's cell phone rang. Seeing the caller ID on the screen, Zhu Dangxin was startled, because the caller was his father Zhu Ziqiang. As soon as the call was connected, a roar came. "Little bastard. Where the hell are you now? What the hell are you doing? Big boss Yu's call even called me." Zhu Dangxin was stunned. The next chapter, I want a little. Chapter 528. An old friend comes. In an instant, Zhu Dangxin began to feel guilty. From the tone of his father's phone call, he already felt something was wrong. I didn't do anything." Zhu Dangxin hesitated. Zhu Ziqiang said angrily, "It's fucking now, and you're still lying to me. You just wait there honestly, don't do anything, do you hear me? I'll be there right now." After saying that, Zhu Ziqiang hung up the phone. Zhu Dangxin was holding the phone, and the whole person was in a state of confusion. He turned his head to look at Su Chen, and Su Chen just smiled faintly. Zhu Dangxin began to feel scared. He also realized that he might have offended the real boss. Zhu Dangxin wanted to apologize to Su Chen right now, but he always felt that he couldn't wipe it off. In Qianjin Hall, several people were awkward. Su Chen was naturally fine and walked around to have a look. He even picked out 2 more medicinal herbs. "We'll settle the bill together later," Su Chen said to the boy. The young man smiled bitterly and nodded repeatedly. "Hey, okay, take your time to choose." He had also seen it. This Mr. Zhu is probably going to be in trouble. Zhu Dangxin stood there, embarrassed to the point of exploding. But he didn't dare to say anything or make any moves. Seeing this scene, Tan Xiang was amused. She asked Su Chen, "Mr. Su, do you really know that Mr. Yu?" Su Chen nodded. "I met him once before in Yicheng, so I helped him a little." Tan Xiang was relieved immediately. That's good. "What? Are you afraid that I can't afford to offend this guy?" Su Chen asked. Tan Xiang shook her head. "No. You taught the Bei family a lesson. How can you afford to offend him? I'm just worried that it will be troublesome for you to deal with it." Su Chen smiled and said, "It's okay." Soon, a middle-aged fat man rushed in from outside. He looked anxious and looked at everyone. Seeing Zhu Dangxin, the fat man was furious. "You rebellious son, what trouble have you caused me again?" Zhu Dangxin's face turned bitter. "Dad, I really didn't cause any trouble." Before he could finish, the fat man Zhu Ziqiang cursed. "I haven't caused any trouble yet. Your 2 bodyguards are lying outside? What are they doing? Enjoying the cool?" Zhu Dangxin hurriedly explained. "Dad, I really didn't mean it. I just wanted to buy these medicines for you. You didn't want to." At this time, Su Chen interrupted. "Don't say bye, that's too nice. You are robbing." Suddenly, Zhu Dangxin's face turned red. Zhu Ziqiang said angrily, "What's going on? You beast, explain it to me clearly." Zhu Dangxin lowered his head and dared not speak. Zhu Ziqiang looked at the young man next to him and said, "Come and tell me what's going on." The young man didn't dare to hide it and quickly told the whole process again. Bang! Zhu Qiang turned around and slapped Zhu Dangxin in the face. The next second, Zhu Dangxin's face was swollen. He covered his face and said with grievance, "Dad, I bought the medicine for you. Why do I need you to buy it for me like this?" Zhu Qiang shouted angrily. Then, Zhu Qiang ran to Su Chen and said respectfully, "Sir, I'm really sorry. This rebellious son, don't know the rules and bumped into you. I apologize to you." Su Chen nodded and said nothing. Zhu Qiang's face was not very good. However, he still bowed and asked, "I don't know, what is your relationship with our director Yu?" Su Chen smiled. "Wait for him to come, you will know." Zhu Qiang smiled bitterly, but he could only smile awkwardly and stepped aside. Not long after, a burst of urgent footsteps sounded outside the door. Two familiar figures rushed in. The people who came were naturally Yu Filei and Zhu Wanqiu. Seeing Su Chen, their faces were immediately full of smiles. "Director Yu." Zhu Qiang rushed forward and greeted Yu Filei. However, Yu Filei did not even look at him, but rushed straight to Su Chen. "Mr. Su, you actually came to the provincial capital? Why didn't you tell me, so that I could treat you well?" Yu Filei smiled politely. Su Chen smiled and said, "I came here temporarily and didn't want to disturb you." On the side, Yu Wanqiu smiled and said, "Su Chen, I discussed it with you before I left. In the future, you must say hello to me when you come to the provincial capital. You have broken your promise." "Did you say that?" Su Chen asked in confusion. Yu Wanqiu stamped her feet lightly. "Oh, you are so annoying. You don't keep your word." Su Chen smiled. "Okay. I broke my promise. Let's make an appointment later." Yu Wanqiu was satisfied. Seeing the attitude of the Yu brothers and sisters towards Su Chen, Yu Qiang was dumbfounded. And Zhu Dangxin, who was hiding on the side, was trembling even more. He had stirred up a hornet's nest. Yu Filei turned around and looked at Zhu Qiang coldly. "Mr. Zhu, shouldn't you explain to me what is going on? How did I, Yu Filei's distinguished guest, offend you and your son?" Zhu Qiang had no words to say. In Jintang Pharmaceutical, he was just a small shareholder, while Yu Filei was the major shareholder. If we don't count the internal affairs of Jintang, but the entire provincial capital business community, Yu Filei is a big boss, while he is just a small transparent person. He and Yu Filei can't be compared at all. "Mr. Yu, it's all a misunderstanding. It's me, the rebellious son." Zhu Qiang hurriedly explained the whole process to Yu Filei. As he spoke, he called Zhu Dangxin over and slapped him a few times in front of Yu Filei. Yu Filei nodded and said in a deep voice, "I already know what happened." As he spoke, Yu Filei walked back to Su Chen. "Mr. Su, I'm really sorry. This Zhu Dangxin stole your medicine because he wanted to give it to Zhu Qiang, a friend. Although this kid's methods are indeed bad, his humanity is not too bad. I asked him to apologize to you. As for how to punish him, you have the final say." As he spoke, Yu Filei looked at Zhu Qiang. Zhu Qiang quickly kicked Zhu Dangxin. Bang! Zhu Dangxin walked in front of Su Chen and knelt directly on the ground. He cried and said, "Mr. Su, I apologize to you. I'm a bastard and shouldn't have stolen your medicine. Please punish me." Zhu Qiang also hurried forward and respectfully handed over a bank card with both hands. "Mr. Su, I'm really sorry. I have 5 million here as an apology to you." Zhu Qiang lowered his head and did not dare to raise it. Although 5 million is not too much for Su Chen, it is really not a small amount for a small shareholder like Zhu Qiang. Su Chen looked at the trembling father and son, waved his hands and said, "Forget it. This time, just teach him a lesson, so that he won't do anything wrong again. No matter what the reason is, bullying others by taking advantage of your power should not be done." Su Chen didn't have too much hatred towards Zhu Dangxin. This kid wasn't a bad guy. At least, at the beginning, he still wanted to discuss the purchase with Su Chen, and even wanted to give Su Chen some compensation. Later, even if he asked the bodyguards to do it, they just asked them to throw Su Chen out, instead of breaking other people's arms and legs at every turn, like other bastard rich kids. Therefore, after teaching Zhu Dangxin a lesson, Su Chen didn't want to pursue it too much. Hearing this, Zhu Qiang's face lit up. He nodded quickly and said, "Yes, yes, yes. You taught me a lesson." As he spoke, He kicked Zhu Dangxun. You bastard. You just stood there and didn't dare to thank Mr. Su. Zhu Dangxun didn't expect that the matter would be so easy to cover. He said quickly, "Thank you, Mr. Su. Thank you for your generosity." Su Chen nodded. "You should learn this lesson from this. If you offend someone with a bad temper, you will either be in the hospital or in the morgue. Get up." Zhu Dangxun stood up with a grateful look on his face. "I remember. Thank you." At this time, Yufei smiled and said, "Mr. Su, I just happened to catch you. I will treat you to a meal." Hearing this, Tan Xiang's expression on the side suddenly became a little nervous. Su Chen turned his head to look at her and shook his head. "I have something to do later. Let's make an appointment next time." Yufei felt a little regretful. "Okay." At this time, Yu Zhenai came up and looked at Tan Xiang and said, "This girl is so beautiful. Could she be Mr. Su Chen's girlfriend?" After saying that, she stared at Su Chen closely. Tan Xiang blushed and waved her hand quickly. "No, I'm not Mr. Su's girlfriend. We are just ordinary friends." Yu Zhenai breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled and said, That's good. Then I can also invite Su Chen to dinner." "Su Chen, I have a business reception tonight. Would you like to come and attend it?" Su Chen thought for a moment. "I may not have time. Let's talk about it then." Yu Zhenai smiled. "Okay, I'll call you then." Then, Su Chen asked the waiter to help him with the bill. When he was about to pay, Zhu Ziqiang on the side refused to let Su Chen pay. In the end, he rushed to pay for Su Chen and breathed a sigh of relief. Su Chen smiled, said goodbye to everyone, and left with Tan Xiang. Along the way, Tan Xiang looked at Su Chen with shining eyes. The next chapter may be at 3 o'clock. Good night everyone. Chapter 529. Don't worry, I'm here. Yu Zhenai watched Su Chen and Tan Xiang disappear slowly. A hint of disappointment appeared on her face. Yufei smiled and said, "What's wrong?" Yu Zhenai pouted and said, "Su Chen didn't agree to come to the business reception I hosted." "Didn't Mr. Su say that?" "Let's see first." Yufei smiled. Yu Zhenai shook her head and said, "Brother, do you think I'm stupid? I can't tell that this is Su Chen's excuse." "It's okay." Yufei smiled. "Anyway, Mr. Su has come to the provincial capital. You can make an appointment later. At most, you can ask him every day. Mr. Su will always have time." Yu Zhenai rolled her eyes. I don't know what she was thinking. Yufei turned around and looked at Zhu Ziqiang on the side. "Mr. Yu." Zhu Ziqiang smiled flatteringly. "I'm really sorry. My rebellious son is a bastard. He doesn't know that this gentleman is your honored guest." Yufei waved his hand and said, "That's enough. Since Mr. Su has forgiven you, I don't bother to say anything more. But you and your son should remember not to do this kind of thing again. Otherwise, if you meet a powerful person, you will regret it." Zhu Ziqiang nodded repeatedly. Then, he asked cautiously, "Mr. Yu, who is the background of Mr. Su just now?" Yufei glanced at him. He snorted coldly. "Do you know the old man Jin Guang from the Jindao sect in our provincial capital? Do you know the Qingshan Gate in Yicheng? Have you heard of Mr. Long in Yicheng?" Zhu Ziqiang was stunned, not knowing what Yufei meant by saying this. However, he still nodded. "I've heard of them all. They are all powerful figures in powerful forces." Yufei smiled coldly. "It's good to know. I'll tell you in detail. Old man Jin Guang was killed by Mr. Su. Qingshan sect was wiped out by Mr. Su. Mr. Long, the most mysterious man in Yicheng, was even destroyed by Mr. Su and captured alive on the spot." Zhu Ziqiang was stunned for a moment. "My god. This is... I'm walking in front of the king of hell." He turned his head and looked at his dumbfounded son Zhu Dangxun. He couldn't help but secretly rejoice in his heart. It was almost. He almost had no descendants. In an instant, the backs of both father and son were soaked. Yufei looked at them coldly. "Take care of yourself." With that, Yufei left with Yu Zhenai. The Zhu father and son took a long time to finally come to their senses. Zhu Ziqiang turned around and looked at Zhu Dangxun. Without waiting for him to speak, Zhu Dangxun immediately said, "Dad, I was wrong. I will remember this for the rest of my life. I swear, I will be as obedient as a bastard in the future." Before he could finish, Zhu Ziqiang kicked him directly. Zhu Dangxun looked aggrieved. "Dad, I swear, why are you kicking me?" Zhu Ziqiang laughed and scolded. You are a bastard. Who am I? A bastard? After scolding, both father and son couldn't help laughing. A storm just passed so easily, and the two were very relieved. On the other side, Su Chen and Tan Xiang walked together. Tan Xiang kept glancing at Su Chen, with a strange glow in her eyes. Su Chen asked, quite unaccustomed, why are you looking at me like that? There was a hint of blush on Tan Xiang's pretty face. She whispered, just now, that big guy you invited you to dinner, why didn't you agree? Su Chen smiled. Then, he said in a joking tone, you said you would treat me to a meal to thank me. If you were to treat us this time, wouldn't that let you escape? Hearing this, Tan Xiang smiled. Mr. Su Chen obviously didn't want to disappoint her, but he still had to save his face by saying this. Mr. Su is so sweet. Tan Xiang felt a warm current flowing through her heart. Then, she smiled and asked, so you are going to give me a big meal? Su Chen nodded, of course. Tan Xiang chuckled. Her eyes narrowed into a crescent shape. Under her guidance, the two quickly found a restaurant. Huafu restaurant. Tan Xiang smiled and said, this is the restaurant. Although the price is not very expensive, the taste is very good. Before, when I was not sick, I often came here with my classmates to eat. But later, I was sick. At this point, Tan Xiang's face was a little sad. Su Chen was silent. After all, it is difficult for any young girl to accept such a thing. Everything was fine at first, but suddenly she became seriously ill. After he recovered from the illness, a long time had passed. The school also arranged for him to take a leave of absence, and he was completely cut off from his former classmates and life. Su Chen sighed. The two entered the Huafu restaurant. Tan Xiang was familiar with the place, and ordered a few dishes. Mr. Su, these dishes are the signature dishes here, and they are very delicious. In the past, when I came here with my classmates, I would order them every time. Tan Xiang smiled. Soon, several dishes came up. Su Chen tasted them, and they were really good. The two chatted while eating. Tan Xiang asked, Mr. Su, I have always been curious, how come you are so powerful? My martial arts skills are better than my father's, and my medical skills can even bring the dead back to life. Your connections are also very strong. Even that big boss you is respectful to you. Su Chen smiled. These connections are all brought by medical skills and martial arts. In terms of martial arts skills and medical skills alone, I'm not that powerful. There are people who are more powerful than me. Tan Xiang was stunned. Is there anyone more powerful than you? Su Chen nodded. It's my grandfather. All my martial arts and medical skills were cultivated by him. Wow. Tan Xiang was surprised. Your grandfather is so powerful. Where is he now? Su Chen was stunned, his expression a little sad. In fact, he also missed the old man a little. He hadn't heard from his grandfather for a long time. Tan Xiang panicked when she saw Su Chen's expression. She was at a loss and said, Mr. Su, I'm sorry, I don't know your grandfather. Su Chen was stunned for a moment, then realized that Tan Xiang must have misunderstood. He smiled and said, my grandfather is not dead. He just went out for something. He is always like this. Tan Xiang blinked her big eyes. At this moment, she was embarrassed and wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Sorry, I misunderstood. Su Chen didn't take it seriously. Tan Xiang blushed and asked, does learning these things affect your studies? Su Chen smiled and said, I learned everything from my grandfather, and I have never been to school. So, sometimes, I envy you for having classmates, teachers, and a campus. Tan Xiang was slightly startled. She hurriedly said, Mr. Su, I'm now negotiating with the school, and preparing to end my leave and return to school. Or, you can send me off, when I return to school. It's just right, I'll take you to see our campus. Su Chen's heart moved, and then nodded in agreement. Okay. It's just right for me to experience what college is. Tan Xiang laughed immediately. At this time, a cry of surprise came. Tan Xiang, Su Chen and Tan Xiang turned their heads to look. A young man and woman were looking over here. The person who spoke was the girl. The girl was pretty good looking, with delicate makeup on her face. Beside her, she was holding a fat boy. The boy's eyes were fixed on Tan Xiang's face, and there was something strange about it. Seeing the two, Tan Xiang was startled at first. Then, she suddenly said in surprise, Xian Ruking. She turned to Su Chen and whispered, Mr. Su, this is my college classmate, Xian Ruking. Xian Ruking ran over excitedly. She was surprised. Ah. Xiaoying, it's really you. I heard that you were sick, so I applied for a leave of absence. I see you seem to be fine now. Tan Xiang smiled and said, I was indeed sick for a long time. But a few days ago, I recovered. Now, I have been applying for the procedures to go back to school. Xian Ruking smiled and said, that's great. Since we are so coincidental, why don't we just eat together? My boyfriend Kandahe has booked a private room. Let's go. It's also more private for us to eat. Tan Xiang smiled and refused. No need. I have friends here. Xian Ruking glanced at Su Chen and said, it's okay. Anyway, there are only a few of us. Let's eat together. It's just right. I want to talk to you about the changes in our class and our internship. Let me tell you, I'm interning at Joyoung Food Group now. In the future, maybe I can stay at Joyoung. Su Chen was stunned. Joyoung Food Group? Isn't that the company that she gave to herself after curing Zhang Wanqiu? Hearing what Xian Ruking said, Tan Xiang was a little moved. She turned her head and glanced at Su Chen. Su Chen smiled and said, I can do anything. Tan Xiang nodded. Okay then. In the end, the four of them entered the box together, sat down and ordered the dishes. The two girls chatted a lot. At this time, Xian Ruking looked up and introduced, Xiaoying, let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend Kandahe. Let me tell you, my boyfriend's father is a middle-level leader of Joyoung Food Group. He got me this internship opportunity. Later, if I want to join Joyoung, I have to rely on him. On the side, Kandahe straightened his chest and raised his head. With a pair of squinting eyes, he kept glancing at Tan Xiang. This woman is much more beautiful than his girlfriend Xian Ruking. However, to his disappointment, Tan Xiang didn't even look at him. At this time, Xian Ruking glanced at Su Chen again, with a little disdain in his eyes. She asked, Xiaoying, are you in love? Is he your boyfriend? Tan Xiang's pretty face flushed immediately. No. This is Mr. Su Chen. We are just ordinary friends. Xian Ruking immediately smiled and said, I told you. You are so outstanding, you would not be so short-sighted. Tan Xiang waved her hands hurriedly. Ruking, don't talk nonsense. I'm not worthy of Mr. Su. It's all the same. Xian Ruking said nonchalantly. Then, she said with an experienced look, Xiaoying, you are so beautiful, you must not waste your appearance advantage. When you choose a boyfriend in the future, you must carefully consider and compare, and find a rich second generation. As she spoke, she rolled her eyes. Or, I'll let Dahe introduce you to a boyfriend. Tan Xiang refused. No, I don't have this plan now. Xian Ruking smiled and said, you're welcome. Xiaoying, let me tell you, I found out that this society is different from our university. When I came out for internship, we girls should rely on our beauty advantages to find a powerful boyfriend. Like me, I found Kandahe. My internship and future work are much easier. Kandahe looked proud. Student Tan, you have to find a rich second generation with your appearance, so as not to lose out. Let me introduce you to one. Absolutely tall, rich and handsome. As he spoke, Kandahe took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. Hello, brother Ang. Come to 106 of Huafu restaurant. I'll introduce you to a girlfriend, a beautiful girl. Tan Xiang's face changed immediately. Her face was tense, and she said angrily, how could you do this? On the side, Xian Ruking said quickly, Xiaoying, I'm doing this for your own good. Kandahe nodded, that's right. When my buddy comes, you'll understand. Tan Xiang was still very angry. She turned to look at Su Chen. Su Chen looked calm and said calmly, don't worry, I'm here. Hearing this, in an instant, Tan Xiang calmed down and felt confident. Chapter 530, you don't mind, do you? Next, Xian Ruking kept saying that women must find a powerful man. Tan Xiang looked at Xian Ruking and felt very unfamiliar. She remembered that when she was in school, Xian Ruking was still relatively immature. Unexpectedly, after just an internship for a period of time, she turned into what she is now. Society is really a carving knife that changes everyone's original appearance. Soon, there was no knock on the door. The door of the box was opened again. A skinny figure walked in. As soon as this person came in, he was yelling, "Hey, I'm here. Don't lie to me. If you lie to me, give me your girlfriend." Hearing this, everyone's face changed. Even Kyan Dahe and Chyan Ruking were the same. The words of the newcomer were obviously insulting. However, Kyan Dahe still took a deep breath and smiled. Mr. Chen is a person who likes to joke. Chyan Ruking also pulled the corner of his mouth. Yes, yes. Su Chen and Tan Xiang turned their heads to look. The man who came was a skinny guy. He was very thin and had dark circles under his eyes. Su Chen knew at a glance that this man had been drained of his body by alcohol and sex. Kyan Dahe quickly stood up and introduced everyone. "Everyone, this is my good brother, Chen Yingrang. Brother Ang's father is Chen Hutong, the deputy general manager of our Jiuang Food Group. He is a powerful person." Then, Kyan Dahe introduced Chen Yingrang. "Brother Ong, this is the beautiful girl I told you about, my girlfriend's classmate, Tan Xiang. The one next to him is Su Chen. He is Tan Xiang's ordinary friend." When Chen Yingrang saw Tan Xiang, his eyes were straight for a moment. "Damn. Kyan Dahe, you didn't cheat me. Hello, Miss Tan. My name is Chen Yingrang. Nice to meet you." Chen Yingrang immediately stretched out his hand. Tan Xiang did not stretch out her hand. She looked a little flustered. She responded in a low voice, "Hello." However, Chen Yingrang did not take it seriously. Instead, he liked Tan Xiang's slightly weak temperament. The few people were considered to have known each other, so they sat down directly. Then, Kyan Dahe and Chyan Ruking's topic revolved around Chen Yingrang. They kept bragging about how powerful Chen Yingrang's father Chen Hutong was, how much pocket money Chen Yingrang had, and what luxury car Chen Yingrang bought. Chen Yingrang looked proud and enjoyed the flattery of the two. However, Su Chen and Tan Xiang were not interested at all. Not to mention Su Chen, who has a net worth of tens of billions. Tan Xiang, as the daughter of Tan Yangshan, is not short of money at all. Not to mention that Su Chen just brought back 20 billion last night. Therefore, when the two saw Kyan Dahe and Chyan Ruking's flattery, they felt that it was just like children playing house. Chen Yingrang didn't look at Tan Xiang's face, and when he saw the expression he imagined, he suddenly felt a little annoyed. He picked up the wine glass and said to Tan Xiang, "Miss Tan, we are destined to meet. Come, let's toast to fate." Tan Xiang waved her hand and said, "Sorry, I don't drink." Chen Yingrang immediately said, "Come on, drink a little. Just try it." This is his usual routine. As long as the girl starts, he will keep pouring. In the end, the result is naturally to win. However, Tan Xiang insisted and shook her head. "I just recovered from my illness and it's not suitable for me to drink." Chen Yingrang frowned immediately. Bang! He put the wine glass directly on the table. "Miss Tan, I see that you are fine now. You are obviously not giving me face." Chen Yingrang's face darkened. On the side, Chyan Ruking and Kyan Dahe's faces suddenly became flustered. Chyan Ruking hurriedly persuaded, "Xiaoying, don't be so willful, you have to drink a little when Mr. Chen toasts you." Tan Xiang looked at Chyan Ruking in disbelief. She didn't expect that Chyan Ruking didn't care about her at this time, but came to persuade her. Tan Xiang's chest was furious, and she didn't know what to say. Su Chen said coldly, "Why does Xiaoying have to drink when he toasts?" Chyan Ruking glared at Su Chen fiercely. "It's none of your business, shut up." Then, she said to Tan Xiang, "Xiaoying, I'm interning at Jiuang Food Group now. Whether I can stay in Jiuang in the future depends on a word from Mr. Chen. If you don't give Mr. Chen face, you're harming me." Tan Xiang's face was tense. She didn't understand how she could be the one who harmed Chyan Ruking. Su Chen sneered. "This woman is very good at moral kidnapping." Su Chen said coldly, "Whether you stay in Jiuang or not, what does it have to do with us? You." Hearing this, Chyan Ruking was very angry. At this time, Chen Yingrang also noticed Su Chen. He stared at Su Chen and asked, "Brother, my name is Chen Yingrang, and my father is Chen Hutong, the deputy general manager of Jiuang Food Group. May I ask where you are from?" Chyan Ruking and Kyan Dahe smiled. They all knew that Chen Yingrong was very dissatisfied with Su Chen when he said that. Su Chen smiled and said, "My name is Su Chen, an ordinary person. I can't compare with you. Of course, there is no father who can be mentioned every day." Hearing this, Tan Xiang almost laughed out loud. On the other side, Shan Ruking and Kan Dahei's faces changed. This is a naked mockery. And Chen Yingrong's eyes really turned cold. Su Chen looked at Chen Yingrong and smiled. "Don't you want to drink? Otherwise, how about I drink with you?" Hearing this, Chen Yingrong immediately raised a smug smile. "Sure." Chen Yingrong agreed very straightforwardly. He continued, "But if I drink, I like to drink with people to the end. Don't drink with me. When you can't drink more than me, start to act like a grandson." Su Chen smiled. "Our drinking habits are quite similar. Then let's go to the bar. Don't use cups, just blow the bottles directly." Kan Dahei was very active. He quickly asked the waiter to bring up a few boxes of beer. Because he knew that Chen Yingrong's alcohol tolerance was particularly good. He had never seen anyone who could drink more than Chen Yingrong. Bang, bang. 2 bottles of beer were opened directly. Chen Yingrong sneered, "I forgot to tell you that my nickname is a beer prince, and I'm known for drinking 1,000 cups without getting drunk." What a coincidence. Su Chen smiled. "I also have a nickname, the Beer King, who can drink 10,000 cups without getting drunk. What's the big deal about you opening 2 bottles? You have to open all those boxes anyway." Chen Yingrong was stunned. He was shocked by Su Chen's arrogance and didn't notice that he was taken advantage of by the other party and became the cheap son of the Beer King. Kan Dahei, who was standing aside, didn't believe that Chen Yingrong would lose at all. He picked up the beer opener. Bang, bang, bang. 4 or 5 boxes were opened in a row. Dozens of bottles of beer were scattered all over the table and the floor. "Who's going first?" Chen Yingrong asked. Su Chen didn't say anything at all. He just picked up a bottle and drank it. In less than 10 seconds, Su Chen finished the bottle. Tan Xiang looked at Su Chen with some worry, and Su Chen gave her a reassuring look. "Boy, you have a good alcohol tolerance." Chen Yingrong sneered, then picked up the bottle and drank it. "Good. Brother Ang has a good alcohol tolerance. Mr. Chen is really amazing." On the side, Kan Dahei and Shan Ruking hurriedly flattered him. However, before Chen Yingrong had time to enjoy the flattery of the two, Su Chen had already finished the second bottle with a smile on his face. Then, he looked at Chen Yingrong with a smile and said, "Men should be more generous when drinking. You don't mind, right? If you are not used to it, you can eat some food first." Hearing this, Chen Yingrong immediately got angry. Chapter 531. Do you like to cut people's heads? Chen Yingrong stared at Su Chen. He snorted coldly and said stubbornly, "I think so too." As he spoke, Chen Yingrong picked up a bottle of beer and drank it again. "Good." Shan Ruking and Kan Dahei applauded again. Because if they didn't take advantage of the opportunity, Su Chen would finish the third bottle. Bang. Su Chen put the third bottle on the table. Then, he looked at Chen Yingrong who had just finished the second bottle. Tan Xiang was completely relieved. At least for now, this Chen Yingrong is definitely not Mr. Su's opponent. A trace of shame and anger flashed across Chen Yingrong's face. Drinking is one of the few things he can pretend to be, apart from his family background. Now, he looks like he is going to be humiliated by this kid. "Boy, you are quite good at pretending. Let me see how many bottles you can drink," Chen Yingrong said coldly. Then, he picked up another bottle and poured it directly into his mouth. Su Chen was not in a hurry. He waited for Chen Yingrong to finish drinking and then continued drinking. The two of them just drank bottle after bottle without eating. 4 bottles, 5 bottles, 6 bottles, 16 bottles, 17 bottles. Bang. Su Chen put down the 18th bottle and looked at Chen Yingrong with a smile again. Although Chen Yingrong felt that he was not very drunk, his stomach felt like it was going to explode. Su Chen smiled and said, "Are you still okay? If you can't drink it all, just act like a grandson as you said." Chen Yingrong's face flushed and a hint of blue. "Who said I can't?" He gritted his teeth. Then, he picked up the bottle and blew it again. However, this time, he didn't drink half of it. Puff. Chen Yingrong sprayed it directly, spraying all over the table. Then, Chen Yingrong covered his mouth and ran to the bathroom outside the box. Brother Rang. Kai and Dahe panicked and hurried out. Hi. Ugh. Before the two of them got far out of the box, the sound of vomiting was heard. It's obvious that he can't drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk. At most he can only drink 200 cups without getting drunk. Su Chen smiled and put down the 19th bottle of wine. Tan Xiang stared at Su Chen and praised, Mr. Su, you are so amazing. You are so good at drinking. Su Chen explained seriously, of course, he is the little prince of beer, and I'm the king of beer. There is a generation difference. With his alcohol tolerance, he can bully others, but it will definitely not work when he sees me. Puff. Tan Xiang laughed directly. At this time, on the side, Shan Ruking was full of anger. She said sternly, Tan Xiang, Su Chen, what do you two mean? I introduced the rich second generation with good intentions to you, but you deliberately made trouble for Chen Xiao. Are you still human? Su Chen was confused. This woman, she is really good at making excuses. And she introduced the rich second generation with good intentions? Isn't it obvious that she wants to use Tan Xiang to please Chen Yingrong and seek benefits for herself? What a shameless person. Su Chen said coldly, are you sure that Chen Yingrong and I were not competing in a fair drinking contest just now, but I was teasing him? Didn't you see how enthusiastic he was when he wanted to compete with me in drinking? Or do you think Chen Yingrong is a moron? Shan Ruking was stunned. You are making up excuses. Shan Ruking shouted angrily. Anyway, you have offended Master Chen, so just wait and see. He will never let you off. Su Chen sneered. The ones he won't let off should be you and Kai and Dahe, right? After all, it was you who called him here. Shan Ruking's face flashed with a trace of panic. Chen Yingrong would definitely not treat him well in this matter. Su Chen continued, besides, why should we wait? Can't we just leave now? At that time, it won't be us who will suffer anyway. Shan Ruking's face suddenly changed. She opened her arms and shouted, you can't leave. Now, the only way she could escape responsibility was to let Chen Yingrong teach Su Chen and Tan Xiang a lesson and vent her anger. At this time, there was also a shout outside the door. Damn it, don't even think about leaving. Chen Yingrong and Kai and Dahe ran in. Chen Yingrong seemed to have finished vomiting and washed his face. He looked much more sober. You made me look bad, and you still want to leave? He stared at Su Chen and gritted his teeth. Su Chen looked at Chen Yingrong coldly and asked, you didn't say that when we were drinking just now. Stop talking nonsense. Chen Yingrong yelled, boy, kneel down and kowtow to apologize, and then leave this woman here, and I'll let you go. Otherwise, don't even think about getting by in the future. Su Chen sneered, come on, I want to know why you won't let me get by. Please, broaden your horizons for me. Seeing Su Chen's arrogant look, Chen Yingrong was almost furious. Asshole, are you looking for death? As he spoke, Chen Yingrong picked up a bottle from the table and threw it at Su Chen. It seemed that he was going to cut Su Chen's head open. Ah! Tan Xiang screamed. Su Chen's eyes turned cold. He slightly turned sideways and dodged this. Then, Su Chen made a lightning move and directly snatched the beer bottle from Chen Yingrong's hand. Then, he pressed Chen Yingrong. Bang! Chen Yingrong was crawling on the dining table. Su Chen held Chen Yingrong's neck with one hand to prevent him from getting up. All of a sudden, the juice from the food, the wine, and the drinks were all over Chen Yingrong's head and face. In particular, there were a few hot dishes, which made Chen Yingrong scream. Su Chen said coldly, you like to slash people's heads, don't you? As soon as the words fell, Su Chen took the beer bottle and hit Chen Yingrong's head hard. Bang! The beer bottle exploded directly. Ah! Chen Yingrong screamed. On the side, Shan Ruking and Kai and Dahe also screamed in fear. You stop it. Kai and Dahe gritted his teeth and stared at Su Chen. Su Chen threw down the bottle in his hand and picked up a new bottle. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Kai and Dahe coldly. Do you want to replace him? Kai and Dahe was so scared that he shook his head again and did not dare to speak immediately. Su Chen said coldly, actually, I don't like drinking, but you forced me to drink with you. Then you have to pay for the bottles I drank. As he spoke, Su Chen picked up the empty beer bottles again and hit Chen Yingrong on the head. Bang, bang, bang. 18 beer bottles exploded on Chen Yingrong's head at an alarming speed. Blood mixed with wine and soup flowed on the table. Su Chen didn't want Chen Yingrong to get into trouble. While opening his head to teach him a lesson, he also gave him some longevity energy to treat him. Chen Yingrong was really fine except for the pain. In fact, he didn't bleed much. After Su Chen finished beating him, he threw him away. Chen Yingrong was thrown directly into the corner. Mr. Chen, Qian Dahei and Qian Ruking looked panicked and ran over quickly. Tan Xiang also had some worry on her face. Is he okay? Don't worry. I was treating him while knocking, so it just hurt a little at the time. No harm. Su Chen explained. Tan Xiang was stunned, her little face full of shock. It seemed that she didn't expect that there was such an operation. As Su Chen said, although Chen Yingrong's face was covered with blood, he didn't faint. He raised his head and stared at Su Chen with resentment. You bastard. Wait. Qian Dahei has sent a message to my dad. You are dead. Su Chen sneered. If you let me go now, maybe you are not so unlucky. Otherwise, you will regret it. Don't even think about it. You can just wait to go to jail. Chen Yingrong shouted. Su Chen looked indifferent. Since this Chen Yingrong likes to use his power to oppress others so much, Su Chen will let him experience the feeling of being crushed. Soon, a sound of footsteps sounded outside the box. A middle-aged man with glasses rushed in. Son. The middle-aged man saw Chen Yingrong and suddenly cried out in pain. Chapter 532. Is he Consultant Su? The person who came was a middle-aged man. It was Chen Yingrong's father, Chen Hutong, the deputy general manager of Joyang Group. Chen Hutong cried out in pain when he saw his son's miserable appearance. He hurried forward and helped Chen Yingrong up with a distressed look on his face. Son, what's wrong with you? Which bastard beat you like this? Chen Yingrong looked miserable. Dad, it was that Su Chen. He had a drinking contest with me, and he didn't beat me, so he beat me. He took a bottle and cut my head more than a dozen times. Su Chen and Tan Xiang were confused. How could there be such a shameless person? At this time, he lost the drinking contest, and he was still lying on the side. Qian Dahei and Qian Ruking nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, yes. That's it. Su Chen was also impressed in his heart. Sure enough, people who are not of the same kind will not get together. Chen Hutong turned around and looked at Su Chen coldly. Boy, you want to die for doing this to my son? Chen Hutong had a grim face. Su Chen said calmly, first, it was your son who insisted that my friend drink, so I blocked the drinking for my friend. Second, it was your son who proposed that we compete in drinking. In the end, he was the loser. Now, there is probably still his vomit outside the box and in the bathroom. Third, we wanted to leave just now, but your son wouldn't let us. He insisted that I kneel down and let my friend stay. In the end, he took the bottle and attacked me first. I have been patient again and again, so I decided to teach him a lesson. If you have a conscience, you should thank me for my teaching. If you don't know the rules. Su Chen laughed. I'm afraid you may not be willing to bear this price. Chen Hutong almost exploded when he heard Su Chen's words. Damn it. You beat my son, and you still want me to thank you for teaching on your behalf. Chen Hutong stared at Su Chen. Boy, did you not think before you spoke? Do you know who I am? Su Chen was speechless. Your son has promoted you countless times. You are the deputy general manager of Joyang Food Group. Your family has several houses, cars, and even dogs, and your son has promoted you. Why, do you want me to repeat it for you? Chen Hutong's face was ugly. He had never seen such an arrogant guy before. Boy, you are really looking for death, right? Chen Hutong said coldly. You wait. As he spoke, Chen Hutong took out his mobile phone and made a call. Brother Huang, please come to the 106th box of Huafu restaurant. There is a kid here who doesn't understand the rules of our provincial capital. You come and teach him a lesson. Chen Hutong hung up the phone. He said coldly, little kid, you are so arrogant, you won't be able to cry in a while. Su Chen pulled out a chair and sat down steadily. Okay, I'll see how you make me cry. Not long after, the door of the box was pushed open directly. a man wearing a big hat and a uniform walked in. This man's name is Huang Qinglui. Chen Hutang's face was delighted at that time. He hurriedly went to meet him. Brother Huang, you are finally here. This brat, after he lost to my son in a drinking contest, he got angry and attacked my son. Everyone here is an eyewitness. Chen Hutang gave Shan Ruking and Kan Dahe a look. The two hurriedly said, yes, yes, yes. That's it. Huang Qinglui looked at Chen Yingrang. He walked towards Su Chen, took out the handcuffs and said, I'm Huang Qinglui. I order you to stretch out your hands and come back to the bureau with me. Su Chen asked, don't you want to listen to me? Huang Qinglui said angrily, there are witnesses and material evidence here. What else do you have to say? Hurry up and stretch out your hands. Otherwise, you will be treated as resisting law enforcement. I tell you, if you resist law enforcement, I have the right to shoot. As he said this, Huang Qinglui put his hands directly on his waist. Tan Xiang's face changed. She said anxiously, police officer, Su Chen was acting bravely and in self-defense. That Chen Yingrang wanted to take me away, and he was the first to hit Su Chen with a bottle. Huang Qinglui glared at Tan Xiang and said, little girl, don't talk nonsense, if you don't understand. If you dare to talk nonsense, I will take you away too. In the future, if you have a criminal record in our bureau, you will never find a good job in your life. Tan Xiang's face rose. Su Chen sneered, what a great prestige. I really didn't expect that a police officer would threaten the witness and stop her from speaking. I want to know how much benefit this Chen Hutang gave you to make you so willing to be a dog. Huang Qinglui's face changed immediately. He shouted angrily, asshole, what the hell are you talking about? Su Chen sneered, what? You can do it, but I can't say it? Huang Qinglui's face was extremely ugly. He put his hand directly on his waist, as if he was ready to take it out at any time. Boy, let me ask you one more question. Are you worthy of cooperating with law enforcement? Su Chen sneered. This is to accuse himself of not cooperating with law enforcement. On the side, Chen Hutang and Chen Yingrong, father and son, looked smug. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how good you are at fighting, you are still doomed when you meet the official family. Shan Ruking and Kan Dahe were also excited. At this time, Su Chen said coldly, it seems that you, a bastard, really want to be the boss to the end. Why don't you come and see what this is? As he spoke, Su Chen raised his hand directly. The ring of the consultant of the Tiger Guard suddenly appeared in front of Huang Qinglui. Huang Qinglui looked at the ring with a confused look on his face. Why are you holding a ring and showing it to me? I told you to stretch out your hand and handcuff it. Su Chen was stunned. The bastard in front of him didn't even recognize the ring of the consultant of the Tiger Guard. However, it is understandable, after thinking about it. For such a black sheep, don't expect how strong his business ability is. Su Chen said coldly, you don't know the ring, then I'll call someone, you should know him. As he spoke, Su Chen took out his cell phone and called Li Yan. Li Yan was very surprised to receive Su Chen's call. She said excitedly, Consultant Su, what can I do for you? Su Chen said, there is a man named Huang Qinglui, do you know him? Li Yan was startled, I know him. He is a member of my team, what's wrong? I'm in the 106th room of the Huafu restaurant now. He wants to handcuff me and take me away. Su Chen said. Li Yan was shocked. She hurriedly said, Consultant Su, please wait. I'm very close to you now. I will be there in 5 minutes. Su Chen replied, okay. Then, the two hung up the phone. Huang Qinglui stared at Su Chen and asked, boy, who are you calling? Su Chen said, don't worry, it's someone you know. Looking at Su Chen's confident look, Huang Qinglui suddenly felt a little unsure. At this time, Chen Yingrong said, Uncle Huang, don't be afraid of this bastard. He just said that he is just an ordinary person. He doesn't have any background. Looking at Chen Yingrong, Su Chen and Tan Xiang almost laughed out loud. Just now, Su Chen was clearly mocking you for mentioning your father everywhere, and you took it seriously? Boy, no matter who you call, it can't change the fact that you deliberately hurt people. Huang Qinglui said angrily. Su Chen smiled. Really? Otherwise, let's wait. Believe me, if you take me away now, you will be in a worse situation. Huang Qinglui's heart suddenly became more uncertain. Soon, the door of the box opened again. Li Yan and Zhou Wanqiu hurriedly walked in with several colleagues. Huang Chenglui hurriedly stepped forward. Captain Li, why are you here? I didn't ask for help. Li Yan and others, however, ignored him at all. Several people walked straight to Su Chen. Advisor Su, we are here. Li Yan said respectfully. Behind him, Zhou Wanqiu and others also saluted hurriedly. Hello, Consultant Su. Last time at the police station, Su Chen solved the case of the delivery man's murder, and also taught the lawless Wu Zhenghua a lesson, completely conquering them. Therefore, these people respect Su Chen very much. Huang Chenglui was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. Consultant Su? This title made him a little confused. He swallowed and said with difficulty, Consultant Su. Could he be the Qinhui consultant who taught Wu Zhenghua a lesson in our bureau? Huang Chenglui was confused. The day Su Chen went to the police station, he happened to be on duty. As a result, he didn't know at all that the young man in front of him was the Qinhui boss who was rumored to be in his own bureau. In an instant, Huang Chenglui's heart sank. The next chapter will be around 2 o'clock. Let's go to bed first. Thank you for your support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Huang Chenglui was trembling all over. He never thought that just coming out to help his friend Chen Hutang with some small things would actually cause trouble for such a big shot. At this moment, Huang Chenglui cursed in his heart. Chen Hutang, you bastard, you screwed me over. On the side, Chen Hutang and his son were stunned. Li Yan is the captain of the city's criminal team, but she is so respectful to Su Chen. The connections of this young guy in front of him are not simple at all. They are afraid that they have kicked against the iron plate this time. Chen Yingrong turned his head quickly and looked at Kan Dahe and Qian Ruking. But these two people were also confused. They didn't know Su Chen's background and details at all. The two were already panicking. Chen Hutang is here, the captain of the city's criminal team is here, and things are getting bigger and bigger. Now, Kan Dahe and Qian Ruking just want to get things over with quickly. Li Yan looked at Su Chen and asked, Mr. Su, what's going on? Su Chen said coldly, this Mr. Huang under your command wanted to handcuff me without caring about the whole story. Even after I explained the situation to him, he didn't care. He even pulled out a gun to deal with me, a prisoner who resisted law enforcement. Li Yan's face was very ugly. She coldly scolded, Huang Chenglui, is this how our law enforcement process is stipulated? Huang Chenglui quickly argued, Captain Li, the victim's head injury is in plain sight. Besides, there are witnesses next to him. There is nothing to investigate. I pulled out the gun not to shoot, but to deter the suspect. Li Yan said angrily, are you only listening to one side of the story when handling the case? Don't you recognize the consultant ring that consultant Su took out? Huang Chenglui was stunned. In this regard, he was indeed at fault. At this time, Su Chen said, Captain Li, according to Huang Chenglui's partiality towards Chen Hutang, I think there is reason to investigate the economic dealings between the two of them. I think there is a high probability that Huang Chenglui is suspected of taking bribes and abusing his power, while Chen Hutang is suspected of offering bribes. Li Yang nodded and said, okay, Mr. Su, I will take these two away now. After returning to the bureau, I will immediately organize a special investigation team to investigate the economic dealings between the two. As he spoke, Li Yan asked his men to arrest them. Suddenly, Huang Chenglui's face turned pale. He knew that he was going to be finished. On the side, Chen Hutang was even more flustered. He gritted his teeth, stood up and shouted loudly, do you dare to touch me? I'm the deputy general manager of Joyoung Food Group. If you touch me, you will slap the face of Joyoung Food Group. Let me tell you, our Joyoung Food Group president Yan Jingxi, the boss behind him is Ms. Zhang Junqiu, Fang Bingbang's wife. Don't you all want to wear this skin? Chen Hutang shouted. Suddenly, Li Yan and others stopped in their tracks. They had heard similar rumors before, so they were a little bit taboo in their hearts. These big men are most concerned about their reputation. When Chen Hutang saw this scene, a hint of joy suddenly appeared on his face. At this moment, Su Chen said lightly, "The boss behind Jiuyang Food Group is Zhang Jinqiu? How come I don't know? Then I really have to call and ask." As he spoke, Su Chen directly dialed the number of Yan Jingxi, the president of Jiuyang Food Group. This number was given to Su Chen by Zhang Jinqiu before. He asked him to contact Yan Jingxi and get all the formalities done. However, Su Chen was too lazy to do these things and kept dragging it on until today. It just so happened that today he took the opportunity to get to know the president of his company, Jiuyang Food Group, the president's office. Yan Jingxi was working. Suddenly, his private mobile phone rang. Yan Jingxi suddenly became smart. He had more than one mobile phone on him. Even his assistant had a work phone in his hand. But those who had his private mobile phone number were extremely distinguished. Yan Jingxi quickly took out his mobile phone. He looked at the caller ID on the screen and was shocked. New boss. Ever since Zhang Jinqiu gave him this number, Yan Jingxi has always wanted to meet the new boss. But he was worried about disturbing the other party. Now, the new boss's call finally came. Yan Jingxi quickly answered it. A young voice came from the other side. "Yan Jingxi, you should know who I am, right?" Yan Jingxi said respectfully. You are Mr. Su, right?" Su Chen nodded. "It seems that Senior Zhang should have told you. Now, come to box 106 of Huafu restaurant." Yan Jingxi quickly agreed. "Okay. Please wait. I will be there in 15 minutes. President." These two words sound high sounding. But in fact, it's just a senior worker. In the final analysis, it's actually similar to the store manager, with only management rights granted by the boss, not ownership. It's just that the store manager manages a store, while the president manages a large group. But the similarity between the two is that, as long as the boss doesn't like it, he can fire him at any time. Therefore, Yan Jingxi also wanted to establish a good image in front of the new boss. After hanging up the phone, Yan Jingxi rushed out immediately. Box 106, Huafu restaurant. Su Chen hung up the phone and looked at Chen Hutang with a smile. Chen Hutang panicked and asked quickly, "Who did you call just now?" Su Chen said, "Didn't you say that the boss behind Jiuyang Food Group is Ms. Zhang Jinqiu? I'll ask someone to ask. Who are you looking for?" Chen Hutang's face was grim. He was really afraid, now that the young man in front of him was so powerful, that he could really call Zhang Jinqiu. If that was the case, his life would be over. Su Chen smiled and said, "Don't worry. It's not worth disturbing Senior Zhang with such a small matter." Chen Hutang was relieved. However, Su Chen continued, "I just called Yan Jingxi, the president of Jiuyang Food Group. I think he should be able to explain clearly who is behind Jiuyang." Chen Hutang said in a difficult tone, You just called President Yin? Impossible. How do you know President Yin?" Su Chen smiled. "You will know in 15 minutes. Chen Hutang looked unconvinced. "Now, President Yin is working in the group. If you want to get here in 15 minutes, I'm afraid you may not be able to sprint all the way. How can this kid in front of you have such a big face?" Su Chen didn't say anything either. Time passed by minute. Soon, 15 minutes were about to arrive. The tension on Chen Hutang's face suddenly dissipated. He laughed and said, "Arsehole, 15 minutes are up now. Where is our President Yin?" As soon as the voice fell, "I'm here." Bang! The door of the box opened. Yan Jingxi was sweating and panting. "Yin? President Yin?" Chen Hutang was struck by lightning and stood there in a daze. Su Chen actually called the president of the Jiuyang group. How did he do it? Yan Jingxi was also a little stunned when he saw the chaotic box and the people in it. "Deputy General Manager Chen, why are you here?" Yan Jingxi looked at Chen Hutang and asked with a heavy breath. Chen Hutang opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. At this time, Su Chen said lightly, "This Deputy General Manager Chen said that Ms. Zhang Jinqiu is behind the Jiuyang Food Group and no one can touch him. I called you here to ask, who is the boss behind the Jiuyang Food Group?" Yan Jingxi heard Su Chen's voice and immediately understood Su Chen's identity. He instantly had some guesses about what happened in the box. Yan Jingxi hurriedly said respectfully, "Mr. Su, the boss behind the Jiuyang Food Group is you. It's not about other people's business." Everyone on the side was stunned on the spot. Chen Hutang stared at Su Chen and said in a trembling voice, "Boss Yin isn't our boss. How did he become him?" Yan Jingxi sneered. "Of course someone gave it to Mr. Su. Now, the boss of Joyoung Group is Mr. Su. I'm the president under Mr. Su, and you are also the deputy general manager under Mr. Su. I almost forgot. It may not be the case now. I should still be the president, but you may not be the deputy general manager." Chen Hutang was stunned on the spot. On the side, Xian Ruking and Kan Dahe had a blank mind. Su Chen, whom they had been mocking for a long time, turned out to be the boss of Joyoung Food Group. The group they wanted to join so much turned out to be Su Chen's company. "Why didn't you say it earlier?" Xian Ruking wanted to cry, but had no tears. "This chapter was locked in the small dark room yesterday, so I didn't see it. I just finished revising it. Sorry." Chapter 534. Being rich is great. Bang, bang. Chen Hutang pulled his son Chen Yingrong and knelt directly in front of Su Chen. Both of them were terrified. "Mr. Su, I know I was wrong. Please let me and my son go." Chen Hutang kowtowed quickly. With one hand, he pinched his dazed son hard. Chen Yingrong injured the grievance in his heart and lowered his head quickly. Su Chen's eyes were indifferent. He stared at Chen Yingrong and asked, "What is going on between you and Kan Dahe and Xian Ruking? Tell me clearly." Chen Yingrong said quickly, "Mr. Su, it's these two dogs and bitches who deliberately taught me bad things. They have nothing else to do all day long, just looking for beautiful female students everywhere and sending them to me. Moreover, they will say good things for me and help me get other girls drunk. This Miss Tan Xiang, they are also going to get drunk, and then..." Chen Yingrong didn't continue to say the next words. On the side, Xian Ruking and Kan Dahe's faces changed. Su Chen asked coldly, "How many times has this happened?" "2 or 3 times. Chen Yingrong said timidly. Su Chen could tell at a glance that he was lying. He glared, used his mental strength, and shouted angrily, "How many times?" Chen Yingrong panicked immediately. 7 or 8 times. Su Chen smiled coldly. "They helped you for nothing?" Chen Yingrong's expression froze. "Well, I promised them that I would let them join the Joyoung Group and promote them." As he spoke, Chen Yingrong lowered his head. "Haha." Su Chen turned his head to look at Yan Jingxi and said lightly, "Can the son of a deputy general manager interfere with the personnel transfer of the group?" Yan Jingxi secretly groaned in his heart. He quickly admitted his mistake. "Mr. Su, I'm the supervisor. I will write a written review to you, and I will also conduct a self-inspection of the group." Su Chen nodded. Then, he turned to look at Li Yan and said, "Captain Li, please take these people back for investigation. Huang Chenglui and Chen Hutang are suspected of bribery. Chen Yingrong is suspected of having sex against the will of women, and Xian King and Kan Dahe may be accomplices." Li Yan saluted immediately. "Got it. Mr. Su, please rest assured." Then, she waved her hand. Jiang Chao and others hurried forward and took the struggling people away. Xian Ruking and Kan Dahe were so scared that their bones went limp. They never thought that they just wanted to trick an old classmate, but ended up trapping themselves in jail. They might regret it for the rest of their lives. Xian Ruking looked at Tan Xiang and begged, "Xiaoying, save me. I don't want to be arrested. If I'm taken away, my life will be over." Tan Xiang's eyes softened. At this time, Su Chen said, "You and Kan Dahe sent 7 or 8 female students to Chen Yingrong. Are all of them willing? Those who were drunk by you and Chen Yingrong, aren't their lives ruined because of you?" Hearing this, Tan Xiang's eyes suddenly became clear. If it weren't for Su Chen, she would have met Xian Ruking and others, and she might have been taken advantage of by Chen Yingrong. Thinking of this, Tan Xiang shuddered. She looked at Xian Ruking with no sympathy. Such a woman is not worth it at all. Soon, Li Yan and others took away the desperate people. Only Su Chen, Tan Xiang and Yan Jingxi were left in the box. Yan Jingxi looked at Su Chen respectfully. "Mr. Su, it's all my fault for not being strict with my subordinates, allowing such a black sheep to appear in the company." Su Chen said coldly, "After you go back, do a good job of internal self-examination." Yan Jingxi nodded repeatedly. Then, he looked at Su Chen and asked, "Mr. Su, when will you go to the company to announce your identity?" It's just right. You should also deal with the personnel transfer and future work arrangements. Su Chen waved his hand and said, there's no rush for these. Senior Zhang told me that you have a good management level and you will be in charge of the management in the future. Do a good job. If I have any other requirements, I will contact you. Yinjingxi was delighted. Thank you Mr. Su for your trust. Jiuyang Food Group is always waiting for you to take the helm. Su Chen waved his hand, and Yinjingxi left tactfully. Soon, Su Chen and Tan Xiang were the only ones left in the box, and it was a mess. Are you full? Su Chen looked at Tan Xiang. Tan Xiang nodded. Su Chen smiled and said, then let's go too. The two came out side by side. Yinjingxi was very sensible. He not only paid for Su Chen's meal in the box, but also compensated for the loss of the box. Su Chen and Tan Xiang walked out of the Huafu restaurant directly. Tan Xiang looked at Su Chen, a little embarrassed. I'm sorry, Mr. Su, I've caused you trouble. She seemed to be in a low mood. Su Chen smiled. It's okay. These are all trivial matters. Tan Xiang said in a deep voice, I didn't expect that Shan Ruking was originally a very innocent girl. How could she suddenly become like this now? Now, I don't want to go back to school. Su Chen smiled and said, this is only a change in a small number of people. There are still many people who will maintain their character, even if they are tempered by a complex society. Just like you. I believe that, no matter what kind of environment, you will not become like Shan Ruking. Because kindness and gentleness are your basic color. Tan Xiang was stunned. She raised her face and looked at Su Chen in a daze. Two blushes rose on her face. Tan Xiang's voice was as soft as a mosquito. Really? Su Chen nodded. Tan Xiang immediately showed a bright smile. Su Chen laughed in his heart. This little girl is indeed pure and simple in her thoughts. Next, Su Chen sent Tan Xiang home. It is not Sun Zhaoxian's villa, but the home of Tan Yangshan and his daughter. Now, Tan Yangshan's job is to protect Sun Zhaoxian, and it is not good for Tan Xiang to follow Sun Zhaoxian and Tan Yangshan all the time. After refusing Tan Xiang's tea request, Su Chen turned and left. He took out his mobile phone and wanted to call Zhou Wanqiu. Su Chen was going to ask Zhou Wanqiu when she would come to the provincial capital, just in time to help him bring the elixir. However, he just took out his mobile phone. Ding-ling-ling. Su Chen's mobile phone rang first. He looked down and saw that the caller ID showed Grandpa Zhao. It turned out to be Zhou Rongchang's call. Su Chen quickly answered, hello, Grandpa Zhao, what's the matter? Zhou Rongchang smiled and said, Zhou Chen, I heard from Wanqiu that you seem to be busy in the provincial capital, right? Su Chen nodded, yes. I want to tell you something. Zhou Rongchang said, Wanqiu has already set off for the provincial capital, and it won't take long to arrive. Su Chen was stunned. Zhou Wanqiu has already set off? Then how can I ask her to bring things? Zhou Rongchang continued, I told that girl to find you when she arrives in the provincial capital. Don't worry about what cooperation she discusses or what activities she participates in. I will feel relieved if you are with her. However, this girl has a stubborn temper. She may not take the initiative to find you. You can call her later and ask where she is. Su Chen hurriedly said, okay. Grandpa, don't worry. The two chatted for a few more words and then hung up the phone. Su Chen felt a little annoyed. He called Zhou Wanqiu again. What's the matter? Zhou Wanqiu's cold voice came. Su Chen asked, you are in the provincial capital? Zhou Wanqiu snorted. Why? Do you think I have delayed you from fooling around in the provincial capital? Su Chen rolled his eyes. Where will you live when you arrive? Zhou Wanqiu said, I have bought a house, Jiutang Shengfu. Su Chen was stunned. It's great to be rich. Chapter 535, Pride. Su Chen was astonished. Speaking of which, Zhou Wanqiu would definitely stay in the provincial capital for a few days this year, and she actually bought a house directly. Zhou Wanqiu seemed to have guessed Su Chen's thoughts. She explained, the Kunying Entertainment City project will last for a long time. I guess I may have to stay in the provincial capital for a long time, and it's not good to stay in a hotel all the time. In addition, in Bincheng, Zhao's catering group has completely merged with his. The next focus of work will be to develop outward, and the focus of future work may be in the provincial capital. This house will be bought sooner or later. Su Chen finally understood. He nodded and said, okay. Then I'll go to Jiu Tang Shengfu and wait for you. Hearing this, Zhou Wanqiu immediately said arrogantly, why are you waiting for me? Just do what you should do. I need you here again. Su Chen smiled and said, I'm an employee of Zhao's catering group. It is my responsibility to serve Mr. Zhao. Haha. Zhou Wanqiu still spoke in an arrogant tone. Then you go and wait. Anyway, I'm not sure when I will arrive. Su Chen smiled faintly. Then I will wait until you, Mr. Zhao, arrive. Okay. You wait. Zhou Wanqiu hung up the phone. A smile hung on the corner of her mouth. And Su Chen also hung up the phone with a smile. He now has a little understanding of Zhou Wanqiu's arrogant temper. She is a donkey that goes with the flow, and you have to go with her temper. Su Chen smiled and took a taxi to Jiu Tang Shengfu. This community is an upscale community located in the city center of the provincial capital, and every inch of land is worth a lot of money. Surrounding it are all kinds of commercial areas. No matter where you go, it is very convenient. The price of the houses in this community is naturally not cheap, but for Zhou Wanqiu, it is certainly not a problem. Su Chen stood at the gate of the high-end community and waited patiently. Not long after, he felt a familiar breath. Looking up, a Porsche Cayenne drove to Su Chen and slowly stopped. The window fell, and Zhou Wanqiu's pretty face was revealed. She had a cold face, but there was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Get in the car, Zhou Wanqiu said lightly. Su Chen opened the car door and was about to sit in the back. At this time, Zhou Wanqiu suddenly said, am I your driver? Do you still want to sit in the back seat? Su Chen was speechless. Here we go again. He had to close the back door and go around to the co-pilot seat. Zhou Wanqiu drove the car and took Su Chen directly into the underground garage. After parking the car, the two took the elevator upstairs. In the elevator, neither of them spoke. In the small space, there was only the breath and smell of each other. Zhou Wanqiu was also a little inexplicably flustered. She looked Su Chen up and down and said coldly, it seems that you are getting along very well in the provincial capital, and don't even want to go back to Bincheng. Su Chen said, I'm really busy with something. Zhou Wanqiu sneered, you came from a village, what are you busy with in the provincial capital? Busy starting a company, or busy being the provincial governor? Su Chen smiled and said nothing. He actually has a company in the provincial capital. The elevator arrived quickly. Zhou Wanqiu bought a large flat of 200 square meters. Although the area is nearly 200 square meters, there are only 3 rooms in it. Each space is very large. Before coming to the provincial capital, Zhou Wanqiu had asked someone to arrange everything. The necessities of life are complete, and the hygiene is complete, so you can move in directly with your luggage. Okay. I'll put the things away and clean up, and then we'll go buy clothes. Zhou Wanqiu said. Su Chen was startled. Why buy clothes? Zhou Wanqiu explained. Today, I'm going to attend a business cocktail party. This cocktail party is very high-end. I must dress formally. By the way, you will accompany me tonight. Su Chen was stunned. Me? Yes. Zhou Wanqiu nodded. Don't you want to accompany me? Her eyes stared at Su Chen like a torch. Su Chen hurriedly said, I didn't say I won't go. Zhou Wanqiu nodded with satisfaction. She continued, this business cocktail party is the first provincial capital chamber of commerce that our Zhao catering group has participated in. It is very important. Don't make trouble for me. Su Chen smiled. I'm very honest, okay. Haha. Zhou Wanqiu pouted. Then, the two packed up. They went downstairs and drove to the mall. This time, Su Chen once again experienced the torture of accompanying a woman to go shopping in the mall. Even though he had a high level of martial arts cultivation and cultivated both physical and spiritual cultivation, he couldn't stand it. Changing clothing stores, changing clothes, trying on clothes, and being asked by Zhou Wanqiu how about this one? And how does it compare to that one? Su Chen's mind was spinning rapidly throughout the whole process, trying to enrich his vocabulary so that he could have a different evaluation of the clothes Zhou Wanqiu picked out. But for Su Chen, this thing was still too tiring. Zhou Wanqiu was like an Iron Man. It took nearly 3 hours to choose a few sets of clothes. Soon, Su Chen was covered with all kinds of packaging bags. Su Chen looked reluctant, but he had to follow. However, when Zhou Wanqiu saw Su Chen's expression, his mouth curled up, and he felt a little more proud. When paying at the cashier, Su Chen saw Zhou Wanqiu still looking at other clothes, so he handed his bank card to the salesperson. When Zhou Wanqiu found that Su Chen had paid the bill, she was stunned. The salesperson praised, "Miss, your boyfriend is so good to you. He is so willing to spend money on you." Zhou Wanqiu blushed slightly, but did not explain. The two walked out of the clothing store. Zhou Wanqiu looked at Su Chen and asked, "How do you have so much money?" The clothes she bought were all famous brands. So many pieces added up, it's not cheap at all. Su Chen smiled. "I also charge for medical treatment." Pa. Zhou Wanqiu spat. "I spend hundreds of thousands on clothes. Who do you treat, and who gives you hundreds of thousands? I think you are just a gigolo, and then the rich woman rewards you." Su Chen suddenly felt like he was praised and humiliated. He retorted, "Do gigolos make money like this? Then I'll be your gigolo." He finished his sentence. Swish. Zhou Wanqiu's pretty face suddenly turned red. She snorted, "Pa. You wish. I don't like you." After that, she took a few quick steps to distance herself from Su Chen. Zhou Wanqiu's face was hot, but an idea flashed through his mind. If this money is really earned by Su Chen as a gigolo for other women, then it is only right for me to spend all his money. I call this dealing with dirty money. Hehe. Su Chen chased Zhou Wanqiu. Zhou Wanqiu turned around, looked Su Chen up and down, and said, "Since my clothes are all paid for by you, then I will buy you some clothes." Su Chen was slightly stunned. "I don't seem to be short of clothes." Zhou Wanqiu glared and said, "You are going to a high-end business cocktail party with me. How can you wear this?" Su Chen said, "I still have a lot of new clothes in my Bincheng wardrobe. Last time, King Yao took Su Chen to buy a lot of expensive clothes. However, it would have been better if he didn't mention this." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Wanqiu's eyebrows were raised. "You are talking about the clothes that your dear bought for you?" Su Chen was immediately upset. It has been so long, and this woman still remembers it. "I bought it myself," Su Chen said. Zhou Wanqiu snorted coldly, "No matter who bought it, it wasn't bought by me. I feel uncomfortable when I see it. I will throw it to the dog later." Su Chen was speechless and said with some heartache, "It's a waste to throw it to the dog. Give it to your dad." Zhou Wanqiu looked at Su Chen, shaking with anger. Su Chen suddenly realized that he seemed to have said something wrong. He hurriedly explained that, "I didn't say your dad is a dog. You bastard. You still say that." Zhou Wanqiu stretched out his hand to twist Su Chen. "I'll twist you to death, you bastard." The next chapter will probably be at 2 o'clock. Chapter 536. A sudden change in the calm. Finally, Zhou Wanqiu still had to buy clothes for Su Chen. Su Chen refused in vain, so he had to accept. Immediately, Zhou Wanqiu took Su Chen to a high-end men's clothing store. He picked out a bunch of high-end suits. Originally, if you want a better fit, custom-made ones are the most suitable. But there was no time, so he had to buy ready-made ones. Fortunately, Su Chen has a very good body proportion and is a natural clothes rack, so it is easy to choose the right one. Soon, Zhou Wanqiu picked out 2 very good high-end suits for Su Chen. Clothes make the man. Su Chen was originally handsome and slender. Now, wearing this close-fitting suit, with a belt and leather shoes, he looks very elite. Well, not bad. Zhou Wanqiu kept nodding. Still looks a bit decent. Su Chen was speechless. This woman, even if she wanted to praise herself, had to belittle it. "I want these 2. I'll pay for them," Zhou Wanqiu said directly to the salesperson next to her. The salesperson was surprised. I don't know if Zhou Wanqiu didn't want to take advantage of Su Chen. The 2 sets of clothes she bought for Su Chen were more expensive, even more than what Su Chen just spent. Therefore, the salesperson's face was full of smiles. She got a lot of commission for this order. The salesperson looked at Su Chen with a smile on her face and said, "Handsome guy, look at your girlfriend, how good she is to you. In the future, you should be nicer to her." Su Chen wanted to explain, but the salesperson had already left to place an order. Zhou Wanqiu looked at Su Chen and said, "Did you hear that? I asked you to be nicer to me in the future. In the future, you should be less angry with me, okay?" Su Chen said, "When have I ever been angry with you?" Looking at his innocent face, Zhou Wanqiu almost wanted to beat him up. "Wasn't it you, the bastard, who said my dad is a dog just now?" Su Chen stretched his arms and legs in a suit. Then, he frowned slightly and said, "This kind of clothes is so restrictive to wear, and it's so expensive. It would be a pity if it was torn in a fight." Zhou Wanqiu's anger rose immediately. "Su Chen, is there something wrong with your brain? You think about fighting every day. Buying a high-end suit, but still thinking about fighting. Can't you change clothes before fighting? Just now you said you wouldn't make me angry, but now you're making me angry." Su Chen also looked helpless. Fighting is something you can't just avoid if you want to. Some people are just mean. If you don't provoke them, they will provoke you. Su Chen didn't say these words to Zhou Wanqiu. Otherwise, Zhou Wanqiu would definitely say that this is a heresy, and now we live in a society ruled by law, blah blah. Soon, the two bought suits, belts, and leather shoes. Just when Su Chen thought he could finally go back, Zhou Wanqiu led Su Chen to the casual men's clothing store. "Are you still buying?" Su Chen asked. Zhou Wanqiu glared at Su Chen and said unhappily, "If you don't buy it, what will you wear when you fight?" "Humph." She snorted coldly and walked into the casual men's clothing store. In the end, Zhou Wanqiu bought 3 more sets of casual men's clothing for Su Chen. This time, what she bought for Su Chen was not some expensive brand, but mainly for comfort. The two returned to Jiu Tangsheng mansion again. Su Chen was naturally fine, sitting cross-legged on the sofa to practice. Zhou Wanqiu had long been accustomed to Su Chen's actions. She turned around and began to put on makeup to prepare for the business cocktail party in the evening. Time passed quickly. Zhou Wanqiu also dressed up. "Hurry up and change your clothes. Let's get ready to go." Su Chen nodded. Then, the two drove towards the Fuelin Hotel. While driving, Zhou Wanqiu said, "Su Chen, you have to remember that this provincial capital is not like our Bincheng. Our Zhou family is still a force in Bincheng. If you cause trouble, the Zhou family can help you deal with it. But in the provincial capital, there are too many big guys. In addition to the 8 big families in the provincial capital, there are many hidden big forces and big groups. You must be honest." Su Chen smiled. He might be more familiar with this provincial capital than Zhou Wanqiu. He has dealt with all the so-called 8 big families in the provincial capital. And Jinglin Villa, Dan Group, Wu Meng, even Fang Bingbang. Su Chen has seen it. However, Su Chen still agreed and said, "Okay, I got it." Then, he asked, "Mr. Zhao, what is this business cocktail party for?" Zhou Wanqiu said, "It is organized by Fuayu Group. Yu Fulei, the president of Fuayu Group, is a big shot in the provincial capital's business community. He has invested in many industries, and he is also the president of the provincial capital's Chamber of Commerce. He has a very good relationship with the provincial capital's business community. So, Fuayu Group will hold some business cocktail parties from time to time for business friends to exchange information and share what they have." Su Chen was stunned. He didn't expect that the business cocktail party he was about to attend was actually organized by Yu Fulei. Suddenly, Su Chen's heart moved. He remembered that, when he was in Qianjin Hall today, Yu Zinayu said that she would host a business cocktail party tonight and wanted to invite him to participate. Could it be that this is what she said? Zhou Wanqiu continued, "Before, I also applied for the qualification of Fuayu Group's business reception, but I didn't get an invitation letter. Recently, I have been busy merging some things of his catering and didn't apply at all. As a result, I suddenly received an invitation letter today. I thought, it just so happens that the Kunying Entertainment City project is about to start, so I might as well come directly to the provincial capital." Su Chen nodded. He already had an idea in his mind. There was an 80% probability that Yu Zinai was responsible for this. The two soon arrived at Fuelin Hotel. Fuelin Hotel is a famous 5-star hotel in the provincial capital. More importantly, it is the property of Yu Fulei, a business tycoon. The entrance of the hotel was already full of various luxury cars. Zhou Wanqiu found a good location, parked the car, and then changed his flat shoes into high heels. You can't wear high heels when driving. The two stepped into Fuelin Hotel. The business reception was on the 6th floor, luncheon hall. After checking the invitation letter, Zhou Wanqiu and Su Chen stepped in. In the hall, light music was playing, and famous wines and delicacies were placed everywhere. All kinds of business elites, financial tycoons, and celebrities were constantly socializing with wine glasses. Zhou Wanqiu pulled Su Chen in, speaking carefully and observing in a low-key manner. Su Chen, on the other hand, looked carefree. Zhou Wanqiu was excited. Wow, there are so many big names from the Dongzhou Business Daily. Look at that one, Mr. Wang from Qingyang Machinery. That one, Mr. Liu from Yuhua Clothing. That one is Mr. Zheng from Bincheng Technology. Su Chen looked over. As a result, he didn't recognize any of them at all. In his eyes, aren't these all bold and balding middle-aged men? Moreover, each of them has various problems. High blood pressure, diabetes, fatty liver, and even some are dying. Instead of looking at these guys, it's better to look at the dishes on the table. Su Chen glanced at the dishes, nodded and responded, yeah, not bad. Zhou Wanqiu turned his head and saw Su Chen staring at the dishes, and he was immediately furious. It's useless to help a useless person. Su Chen laughed. I don't do business. I really don't know these people. It's better to look at a bowl of rice than to look at them. Zhou Wanqiu rolled his eyes. Go away. If you want to eat, go and eat. Don't be in front of me and annoy me. I have to find someone to make connections later, and you staying here will embarrass me. As he said this, he pushed Su Chen aside. Su Chen didn't think it was offensive. It happened that at lunch, he drank a little too much wine and ate less food. Now, he just wanted to make up for it. Su Chen was eating here. Zhou Wanqiu was walking around to see if he could encounter any business opportunities. In the crowd, a man with gold-rimmed glasses swept his eyes across the crowd and locked onto Zhou Wanqiu. He licked his lower lip and smiled and greeted her. He said, "This beautiful lady, my name is Kang Qingyuan, the boss of Fixing Entertainment Media Company. I think your image and temperament are particularly suitable for entering the entertainment media industry. Excuse me, do you want to be a star? We can talk about it." Zhou Wanqiu looked at Kang Qingyuan, who suddenly appeared and was slightly stunned. She smiled politely. "Hello, Mr. Kang. My name is Zhou Wanqiu. I'm sorry, I don't have any plans to be a star at the moment." After that, Zhou Wanqiu was ready to leave. However, Kang Qingyuan stretched out his hand to stop her. "Miss Zhao, you may not know how easy it is to become popular with your image and temperament. As long as you are willing to follow me, I'm confident that I can make you a first-line actress within a year." Zhou Wanqiu still shook her head. "Thank you." Kang Qingyuan's face was gloomy. "Please think about it again." At this time, a male voice spoke. "Mr. Kang, don't persuade me. You don't know that the beauty in front of you is the president of Bincheng Zhao's catering group. I'm not your first-line actress." The two turned their heads to look. The person who spoke was a young man. However, his face was a bit cold. This man was called Rang Ruhong, and his father was Rang Qingshan, the eldest son of Rang Yixuo, the head of the Rang family. Although after the death of Rang Ruiz and Rang Qingfeng, the inheritance rights of the Rang family all belonged to Rang Qingshan's lineage. Their family can be regarded as vested interests, but Rang Ruhong and Rang Ruiz are very close. And Rang Ruiz, who was killed by Su Chen, died because of dealing with Zhou Wanqiu. The Rang family recognized Zhou Wanqiu's appearance. Kang Qingyuan turned around and saw Rang Ruhong and immediately smiled. "Oh, Brother Rong, you are so familiar with this beauty." Zhou Wanqiu was also a little puzzled. Rang Ruhong sneered. "Of course I know her. However, I don't have much friendship with her, but I have some grudges. So, Mr. Kang, please do whatever you want." Kang Qingyuan's face lit up. It turned out that this woman didn't have the Rang family as a backer. Kang Qingyuan stepped forward and said, "Beauty, let's have a good chat." Zhou Wanqiu frowned and said, "I told you, I'm not interested." Kang Qingyuan sneered. "A small town company dares to bully me? I invited you to give you face." Zhou Wanqiu said coldly, "I don't want to be a star. Kang King-gyuan laughed dryly. It doesn't matter if you don't want to be a star. Just have a meal with me and make friends. If you don't give me face, I don't mind advertising your company. Your company wants to develop in the provincial capital, right? Believe in my power in the entertainment and media industry. If I want to target you, your company will roll back to Bincheng, and even can't stay in Bincheng. Zhou Wanqiu's face was extremely ugly. This is a complete threat. Kang King-gyuan had a sinister smile on his face. He stretched out his salty pig hand and grabbed Zhou Wanqiu's white wrist. Zhou Wanqiu looked flustered, and his face was tangled. At this time, a big hand suddenly stretched out and grabbed Kang King-gyuan's hand. It's Su Chen. Sorry, it took so long. It's just a 3,000 word chapter. I'll stop here for today. I'll write more tomorrow. Chapter 537. I hate people pointing at me. Snap. A big hand grabbed Kang King-gyuan's dirty hand. Zhou Wanqiu was delighted when he saw Su Chen, and he felt a little more confident. Kang King-gyuan was startled. He looked up and saw Su Chen's cold eyes. Su Chen said coldly, "Just talk, don't touch me." Kang King-gyuan cursed, "Who the hell are you? Let me go." "Huh? Do you think I don't mind the dirt?" Su Chen snorted coldly and swung. Kang King-gyuan staggered and almost fell. He stood up in a panic, looking at Su Chen in front of him with anger. On the side, Rang Ruhang of the Rang family was trembling. He had recognized Su Chen before. After Rang Rui's and Jiang King Rang died in Bincheng, his second uncle Rang Qingfeng had rushed to Bincheng, but died in the hands of Su Chen. And Su Chen was furious because of this, and went to the Rang family in the provincial capital. A congenital strongman and several Zhuanjin masters of the Rang family all died tragically at his hands. It can be said that Su Chen alone suppressed the entire Rang family. In the end, not only did the Rang family have several people killed in a row, but they also had to apologize to Su Chen and pay compensation. It was humiliating to the extreme. Until now, Su Chen's name is a taboo for the entire Rang family. Seeing Su Chen, those horrible memories and resentment once again surged into Rang Ruhang's heart. Rang Ruhang's eyes rolled around. Look at Su Chen, then look at Kang King-gyuan. Suddenly, the idea of killing someone with a borrowed knife arose in his heart. Kang King-gyuan stared at Su Chen. "Boy, who the hell are you? Dare to meddle in my business?" Su Chen said lightly, "I'm President Zhao's secretary and bodyguard. I have to protect her personal safety. Is this reason enough?" Zhou Wanqiu looked at Su Chen's figure in front of him, and his heart was full of security. Kang King-gyuan was stunned at first. Then, he said with disdain, "I thought you were nothing, but you are just a dog." Humph. Su Chen's eyes turned cold, and he was about to take action. Suddenly, Zhou Wanqiu grabbed his arm tightly. "Su Chen, forget it, don't make a big deal. This is our first time attending a business reception in the provincial capital. We have to leave a good impression." Zhou Wanqiu begged. Seeing Zhou Wanqiu's humiliation, Su Chen felt a little upset. Although he did not agree with Zhou Wanqiu's ideas, he did not want to make Zhou Wanqiu anxious. "Okay." Su Chen nodded and wanted to leave with Zhou Wanqiu. At this time, Kang King-gyuan was relentless. "Asshole, you hit me, and you want to leave?" Zhou Wanqiu was stunned and asked, "Mr. Kang, please don't slander Su Chen. When did he hit you?" Kang King-gyuan sneered. "Just now, he grabbed my arm and almost threw me to the ground. Doesn't that count as beating? Brother Rang Ruhang, do you think it counts?" Kang King-gyuan looked at Rang Ruhang. Rang Ruhang's face was full of teasing smiles. "I didn't pay much attention. I just saw you almost fell. Should this be considered a fight?" Zhou Wanqiu's face changed. These two people are obviously looking for trouble. And Su Chen sneered in his heart. The swing of his arm counted as hitting him. He sneered and stared at Kang King-gyuan and said, "Okay. Tell me, what do you want to do?" Kang King-gyuan sneered. "Either you kneel down and apologize to me, or you get out of this luncheon hall. This kind of high-end business cocktail party is not something that a servant like you can attend." Su Chen said coldly, "I don't choose either. This is not up to you." Kang King-gyuan shouted from a distance, "Brother Kuang, come here." Then, a tall and strong fat man ran over with two security guards. This man's name is Kuang Zhaohu, the lobby manager of Fuelin Hotel. Today, Yufue's business cocktail party was organized by him. Brother Kong, what's the matter? Kuang Zhao, who looked at Kang Qingyuan with a smile on his face. Kang Qingyuan pointed at Su Chen. Brother Kuang, this bastard hit me. I suspect he sneaked in without an invitation. For the safety of other guests, it's better to kick this bastard out. Kang Qingyuan winked at Kuang Zhao, who. Suddenly, Kuang Zhao, who understood. He walked towards Su Chen with 2 security guards. Sir, please show me your invitation. Zhou Wanqiu hurried forward and showed her invitation to Kuang Zhao, who. Manager Kuang, this is my invitation. Su Chen is my secretary. Invitations to this kind of business reception usually allow several people to come. Therefore, it is reasonable for Zhou Wanqiu to bring Su Chen. Kuang Zhao, who shook his head and said, Miss, your invitation letter only means that you are invited, not this gentleman. Zhou Wanqiu said, he is my companion. Just now, when we were in luncheon hall, there were other guests who brought companions. Kuang Zhao, who continued to shake his head and said, you must have made a mistake. So, sir, please leave. Zhou Wanqiu's face suddenly darkened. This Kuang Zhao, who was obviously deliberately making trouble. Kang Qingyuan and Rang Ruhang had smug smiles on their faces. Su Chen said coldly, I suggest you think about it again. If I leave, you may not be able to bear the consequences. Ha ha ha. Kuang Zhao, who laughed out loud, who do you think you are? It's so funny. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, I won't be so polite. As he spoke, he winked at the security guard behind him. The 2 security guards stepped forward and pretended to hit someone. Su Chen's eyes were cold. At this time, Zhou Wanqiu hurriedly grabbed Su Chen. Su Chen, stop making trouble. Let's go. As she spoke, she was about to pull Su Chen away. At this moment, Kang Qingyuan spoke again. Wait a minute. This Su Chen can leave, but you can't. Kang Qingyuan had a sneer on his lips. Why? Zhou Wanqiu's pretty face was frosty. She had retreated again and again, but this bastard was not done yet. Kang Qingyuan sneered, you offended me, so you just let it go? Miss Zhao, you'd better have a meal with me to calm my anger. Otherwise, with the Fixing Entertainment Media Company in my hands, plus the media resources in my hands, I guarantee that your Zhao's restaurant will stop in the provincial capital. Zhou Wanqiu was furious. This bastard actually threatened her. Before Zhou Wanqiu could speak, the next second, Su Chen's figure flashed. Bang! A loud slap hit Kang Qingyuan's face hard. Kang Qingyuan was slapped and flew out. Su Chen's cold voice rang out, you like eating so much, why don't you go to your mother to eat? For a moment, everyone was stunned. Zhou Wanqiu was dumbfounded. Su Chen actually took action. Rang Ruhang's eyes flashed with excitement. There is a big shot behind Kang Qingyuan. Moreover, this was at Yufue's business cocktail party. Su Chen's move was equivalent to directly offending the big men of both parties. This guy's dead. Kang Qingyuan sat on the ground with his buttocks covering his face. He looked unbelievable. Arsehole, you dare to hit me? Kang Qingyuan looked at Kuang Zhao, who, old Kuang, what are you waiting for? This bastard has already taken action. You quickly break his legs and throw him out. Kuang Zhao, whose face was ugly, and he waved his hand. Go. Immediately, 2 tall security guards rushed towards Su Chen. Su Chen kicked out with lightning. Bang, bang, in the blink of an eye. The 2 security guards were kicked out directly and pressed hard on Kang Qingyuan. Ah! Kang Qingyuan screamed, almost suffocating under the pressure. Kuang Zhao, whose face changed. He pointed at Su Chen and shouted angrily, arsehole, you actually made trouble at the business reception of the big boss, you. Before Kuang Zhao, who finished speaking, Su Chen directly broke his finger. I hate people pointing at me. As soon as the voice fell, snap, the finger was directly broken. Bang, kicked out. Kuang Zhao, who also flew out and pressed directly on Kang Qingyuan. The 4 people were like stacked arhats, one on top of the other. Kang Qingyuan was at the bottom, 2 security guards were in the middle, and the fat man Kuang Zhao, who was at the top. Kang Qingyuan's eyes widened, and the whole person felt like he was going to die. The movement here attracted the attention of the people around. For a moment, everyone looked over. Chapter 538, A Trivial Matter. All around. The guests gathered around and looked over. At this time, Kang King Yuan was pressed at the bottom, with a look of pain on his face. On him, there were 2 tall security guards and the sturdy Kuang Zhao who weighed a full 600 kilograms. Kang King Yuan felt difficulty breathing, and his face began to turn purple. Fortunately, Kuang Zhao quickly climbed down and pulled up the 2 security guards, and Kang King Yuan finally caught his breath. On the side, Rang Ruhang saw this scene and his heart was so excited that he exploded. He looked at Su Chen proudly. Ha ha ha. Su Chen, you're dead. Kang King Yuan's uncle is Bei Xinlei of the Bei family, the head of the 8 major families in the provincial capital. And Kuang Zhao, who is the lobby manager of Fulin Hotel. One of them is backed by the Bei family, and the other is backed by the big boss Yu Fulei. If you offend these 2 people, you're dead. Zhou Wanqiu was so scared that his face turned pale when he heard this. The first step of Zhao's catering towards the provincial capital was to offend 2 big bosses. This time it's completely over. However, Su Chen walked towards Rang Ruhang. He raised his hand. Snap. Another slap hit Rang Ruhang in the face. Rang Ruhang was slapped so hard that he turned 3 circles and fell to the ground. Puff, puff. 2 teeth popped out of his mouth. Su Chen's face was indifferent. From the beginning, he felt that this guy was very hostile to him. Rang Ruhang was confused. He covered his face and asked in confusion, "Why did you hit me?" Su Chen said coldly, "According to what you said, I have offended 2 big guys anyway, and I'm completely dead. In this case, if I beat up one more person I don't like, wouldn't it be a profit?" Rang Ruhang was so angry that his lungs were about to explode, but he didn't dare to say anything. In his opinion, Su Chen was dead, and it would be a big loss if he was dragged down by him. Kang King Yuan struggled to get up. He stared at Su Chen with resentment. "Asshole, you dare to hit me? Do you know that my uncle is Bei Xinlei?" Su Chen laughed in his heart. He stared at Kang King Yuan and sneered. "Really? So what?" As soon as he finished speaking, Su Chen kicked out again. Bang! Kang King Yuan hit the dining table like a cannonball. Boom! All the dishes and drinks were smashed into his face. Kang King Yuan's face was full of pain, and he struggled on the ground. The others present were all shocked. Kuang Zhao and Rang Ruhang were even more dumbfounded. Kang King Yuan had already revealed his background. This Su Chen was so lawless that he didn't even take the Bei family seriously. Zhou Wanqiu's face was as pale as paper. She pulled Su Chen's arm, and her voice was crying. "Su Chen, stop fighting, let's go." Su Chen looked at Zhou Wanqiu. "Trust me, I can handle it." Zhou Wanqiu had completely lost her mind and could only choose to believe Su Chen. At this time, Kang King Yuan struggled on the ground and roared, "Asshole, you are dead. Your Zhao's catering group is dead too. I will find the media to discredit your Zhao's catering. I will let my uncle attack your Zhao's catering." Su Chen said coldly, "Your greatest support is your uncle Bei Xinlei, right?" Kang King Yuan nodded stupidly. Su Chen turned to Rang Ruhang and said, "Bei Xinlei is here, right? Go. Call him for me." Everyone was shocked. Rang Ruhang was stunned. Then, he gritted his teeth and ran to the side. Not long after, Rang Ruhang found Bei Xinlei. "Mr. Bei, Kang King Yuan is in trouble. Someone beat him up. You should go over and take a look." The man who beat Kang King Yuan was very arrogant. Not only did he knock out 2 of my teeth, but he also asked me to call you over. Bei Xinlei's face changed. He gritted his teeth and said angrily, "Asshole, how dare you mess with my Bei family." He quickly followed Rang Ruhang and ran over. As soon as he entered the crowd, he saw Kang King Yuan with a miserable face. "King Yuan!" Bei Xinlei shouted. Kang King Yuan burst into tears when he saw his uncle. "Uncle, please save me. This bastard hit me. I told you, my uncle is you." He hit me even harder. Bei Xinlei was furious. He gritted his teeth and said, "Don't worry. Uncle will help you vent your anger." As soon as the words fell, Bei Xinlei turned around and shouted, "Who hit my nephew? Stand up for me." Zhou Wanqiu's face turned pale. At this time, Su Chen stood up calmly. "I hit him. Do you have any objection?" "Do I have any objection?" Bei Xinlei said as he turned his head. "I have a big objection." Suddenly, he saw the person in front of him clearly. Bei Xinlei felt his feet go soft and almost fell to the ground. Gulp. Basinlui swallowed deeply. Looking at Su Chen's faint smile, the scene of him killing people in the Bei family reappeared in Basinlui's mind. At this time, Kang Qingyuan got up and pointed at Su Chen and said, "Uncle, it's this bastard. Look how badly he beat me. He knows you are my uncle, but he still dares to beat me. It's obvious that he doesn't take you seriously. He..." Bang. Before Kang Qingyuan finished speaking, Basinlui slapped him hard in the face. Kang Qingyuan was stunned on the spot. He covered his face and said in confusion, "Uncle, why did you hit me?" Basinlui ignored him at all, but walked quickly to Su Chen and bowed to the ground. Mr. Su, I really didn't know that this bastard offended you. Please forgive him this time." In an instant, everyone was stunned. Ran Ruhan looked at this scene, opened his mouth, and didn't say anything. Zhou Wanqiu was stunned and looked at Su Chen. Other spectators around whispered and asked about Su Chen's background. Kang Qingyuan trotted over and pulled Basinlui, saying, "Uncle, are you mistaken? This bastard, he hit me." Bang. Basinlui stood up and slapped Kang Qingyuan again. With murderous intent in his eyes, he shouted, "Get down on your knees and apologize to Mr. Su. Otherwise, I don't have a nephew like you." How dare Kang Qingyuan ask why? He knelt on the ground with a bang. Mr. Su, I'm sorry." Kang Qingyuan looked humiliated. Basinlui also bowed and said, "Mr. Su, please let this beast go. What conditions do you need? Just ask." Basinlui felt a pain in his heart. He knew that this might cost a lot of money, but this is his own nephew, and he had to help. Su Chen said coldly, "I'm not interested in asking for conditions. Let's see what he has. As long as he can satisfy me, it's fine." Basinlui shuddered. 100 million, do you think it's okay? Basinlui asked with a smile. Su Chen's expression remained the same. Basinlui understood that Su Chen was not satisfied with this price at all. He gritted his teeth and said, "Mr. Su, this beast has a fixing entertainment media company, which is worth tens of billions. I wonder if it can satisfy you." Kang Qingyuan raised his head and said unwillingly, "Uncle, that is my hard work." Basinlui shouted, "Do you want hard work or life?" Kang Qingyuan lowered his head and sobbed. Su Chen said coldly, "Only this time. If you offend me again, okay. Thank you, Mr. Su." After that, Basinlui took Kang Qingyuan away with a look of loss of soul. Kuang Zhaohu and Ran Ruhan were dumbfounded. They had expected that Basinlui would come and teach Su Chen a lesson. In the end, he knelt so cleanly. Su Chen turned his head to look at Kuang Zhaohu with a mocking tone. "Manager Kuang, Kang Qingyuan has left. Do you still want to kick me out now?" Kuang Zhaohu looked ugly. He gritted his teeth and said, "Kang Qingyuan is Kang Qingyuan. What does he have to do with me? I'm driving you away because I'm following the rules of our Fulin Hotel and the rules of our boss, Mr. Yufule." At this moment, a cold voice came. "How come I didn't know that there is such a rule in Fulin Hotel?" The crowd dispersed. Yuzinayu stepped in. When Kuang Zhaohu saw Yuzinayu, his face suddenly changed. He quickly forced a smile and ran towards Yuzinayu. "Miss, why are you here? It's just a small matter here. I can handle it." Yuzinayu's face turned cold, and she shouted coldly, "Small matter? Haha. You are about to drive my distinguished guest away, and you are still talking to me about small matters? The next update may be after 2 o'clock. Let's go to bed first." Chapter 539. Things in the martial arts world. Kuang Zhaohu was startled. Distinguished guests? His eyes turned to Su Chen and Zhou Wanqiu. In an instant, cold sweat flowed down. Yuzinayu walked in front of Su Chen and Zhou Wanqiu. She did not greet Su Chen directly, but bowed slightly to the two of them. "I'm really sorry for you, both of you. It is because of the poor management of our Fuayu group that such people who abuse their power for personal gain appear. Please rest assured, I will punish them severely." As she spoke, Yuzinayu turned directly to Kuang Zhaohu. "Let me ask you, who told you that only one person can enter the luncheon hall with one invitation? Who said that an invitation cannot bring an accompanying person?" Yuzinayu stared at Kuang Zhaohu. Kuang Zhaohu looked ugly and stuttered, "Miss, did Kang Qingyuan give you any benefits?" Yuzinayu asked. Kuang Zhao lowered his head and dared not speak. Yu Zhenyu snorted coldly. Kuang Zhao, you are fired. From now on, all companies under the name of Fuayu Group will blacklist you. If any company takes you in, you will automatically be included in the cooperation blacklist of Fuayu Group. The group will investigate your previous employment. If there is a record of illegal activities, it will be handed over to the judicial authorities. Boom. Kuang Zhao was struck by lightning. He knew. His life is definitely over. No, miss, no. Kuang Zhao knelt on the ground and kept begging for mercy. Yu Zhenyu ordered the 2 security guards, drag him out. The 2 security guards didn't care at the moment, because Kuang Zhao was their leader a few minutes ago. The 2 of them directly lifted him up and dragged him out. Rang Ruhang saw this scene and hurriedly retreated with his head down. As for the 2 teeth that were knocked out, he could only swallow them. Bei Xinlui, the 2nd generation of the Bei family, had to bow his head. He, the 3rd generation of the Rang family, was nothing. Yu Zhenyu turned around and bowed to Su Chen and Zhou Wanqiu again. You too, I'm Yu Zhenyu. Yu Fule is my brother. I'm so sorry. It's our Fuayu Group's lax management that made this mistake. Yu Zhenyu said sincerely. Zhou Wanqiu was shocked. This young woman turned out to be Yu Fule's sister. No wonder Kuang Zhao called her miss just now. Zhou Wanqiu hurried forward. Miss Yu, you're too polite. This matter has nothing to do with you. Thank you for your help. Yu Zhenyu smiled. You're polite. I have other things to do. Please do as you please. After that, Yu Zhenyu quietly winked at Su Chen, then turned and left. Zhou Wanqiu looked at Yu Zhenyu's leaving figure and sighed a little. So, she is the princess of Fuayu Group. Yu Zhenyu, she is really beautiful and capable. Su Chen smiled and said, you are not bad either. You are also beautiful and capable, and you are the president. Zhou Wanqiu blushed. Then, she suddenly came back to her senses, staring at Su Chen with a pair of eyes. What the hell is going on? Su Chen was stunned. What's going on? Isn't this solved? Zhou Wanqiu said angrily. Are you still pretending to me? Explain to me. Why is Khan King Yuan's uncle so afraid of you? Su Chen smiled and said, before, I had a fight with the Bei family. Zhou Wanqiu blinked his big eyes, as if he didn't understand. What did you say? Su Chen smiled and said, I said, I went to the Bei family to have a fight during the past few days in the provincial capital. The first of the 8 major families in the provincial capital, the Bei family? Zhou Wanqiu's tone was difficult. Su Chen nodded casually. Yes, it's this Bei family. I had a fight with them, and then I won. So, that Bei Xinlui is afraid of me, because he is afraid that I will beat him again. Zhou Wanqiu felt his head buzzing. Su Chen, this bastard, actually beat up the first family in the provincial capital during the past few days in the provincial capital. You, why did you fight with the Bei family? Zhou Wanqiu looked puzzled. A provincial capital's top family, a barefoot doctor who just left the village. This is obviously not related. Okay. Su Chen said, they provoke me. Explain it clearly. Zhou Wanqiu glared. Su Chen explained, do you remember that time when Rang Rui's brought Jiang King Rang to Zhao's house to make trouble? Zhou Wanqiu nodded. Su Chen said, that time, wasn't Grandpa Zhao unconscious? I went to the no man's land Medicine King Valley to find medicine for him. As a result, a ding dong Heo came out and insisted on snatching medicine from me and wanted to kill me. In the end, of course, I killed him. Who knew that guy was actually a subordinate of the White Dragon King of the Bei family in the provincial capital? The White Dragon King sent his 3rd disciple crossing Xianjiu and Jingweibing. Later, I came to the provincial capital to do business, and the White Dragon King sent. Su Chen explained it roughly. For some reason, Zhou Wanqiu felt a little sad. It turned out that Su Chen offended the White Dragon King because he was looking for medicinal materials for his grandfather. Moreover, he did so many things in secret. Why didn't you tell me about these things? Zhou Wanqiu asked, staring at Su Chen with red eyes. Su Chen said, I told you sometimes, but you didn't believe it at all. Besides, it's not a big deal. I can handle it by myself. Zhou Wanqiu blushed a little when she heard the first half of Su Chen's sentence. But when she heard the second half, she glared at him. You are showing off every day again. If there is such a thing again in the future, you must report it to me. Do you hear me? Su Chen raised his eyebrows. Let's talk about it later. Asshole, what did you say? Zhou Wanqiu raised his eyebrows. Su Chen immediately changed his words and said, I said yes. Zhou Wanqiu was satisfied. She glanced at Su Chen and said, you were too impulsive to go to the Bei family to fight. You are not allowed to do this again in the future. Su Chen retorted, I won. Even if you win. Zhou Wanqiu stared at Su Chen. The water in the provincial capital is very deep. How do you know that you won't fall one day? Su Chen said helplessly, okay, thank you for your concern, Mr. Zhao. Who cares about you? You are so self-indulgent. Zhou Wanqiu said immediately. Su Chen smiled. Then, he said to Zhou Wanqiu, I see that those people around seem to be quite interested in you. Do you want to talk business with them? Zhou Wanqiu looked up at the crowd around her. Sure enough, she saw many people looking at her and Su Chen. Seeing Zhou Wanqiu looking over, many people smiled friendly and raised their glasses. After what happened just now, these wealthy merchants in the provincial capital also became curious and respectful of Zhou Wanqiu. After all, this is the person who can make the Bei family admit their mistakes and use an eye to apologize. Zhou Wanqiu's face lit up. This start seems to be really good. She decided to strike while the iron was hot. Okay. Then I'll go meet some friends in the business community in the provincial capital. Be honest and don't cause trouble again, okay? Zhou Wanqiu instructed. Okay, Mr. Zhao. Su Chen nodded, then whispered, I don't know who caused trouble just now. You bastard, say it again. Zhou Wanqiu's pretty face turned red. She reached out and pinched Su Chen's waist. Su Chen quickly dodged. Zhou Wanqiu waved his fist at Su Chen, then turned away proudly. Seeing Zhou Wanqiu slowly integrating into the circle, Su Chen was relieved. He walked around twice, took some more food, and found a corner to sit down. Tap tap tap. Su Chen was eating, and the sound of high heels stepping on the ground sounded beside him. Su Chen, so you are here. Su Chen turned his head and saw Yu Zhenayu's smiling face. Did you give the invitation letter to Zhao's catering group? Su Chen asked. Yu Zhenayu sat down with a smile. It's me. I know. That's why you can come to participate. Su Chen smiled. I knew it. Yu Zhenaya said. Su Chen, I'm sorry. What happened just now? Su Chen smiled. It's okay. It has nothing to do with you. By the way, where is your brother? Yu Zhenayu's face changed slightly, as if she had something to hide. Su Chen asked in confusion. What's wrong? Has your brother encountered any trouble? Yeah. Yu Zhenaya nodded. Su Chen was quite curious. Your brother is the president of the provincial capital chamber of commerce, the famous Yu boss. How could he have a difficult problem? Yu Zhenaya sighed. This time, it's not a matter of the business world, but a matter of the martial arts world. Su Chen immediately became interested. That's all for today. Let's see how to adjust it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540, Just a Master of Vitality. Su Chen immediately became interested. What's going on in the martial arts world? Yu Zhenaya sighed and said, my brother was worried about my safety. After returning to the provincial capital, he found me a master of the Xianshan realm to protect me. As a result, I got into trouble again these few days. The master of the Xianshan realm took the opportunity to ask my brother to raise the price. Su Chen was stunned. There was such a thing. How much did your brother pay to hire the master of the Xianshan realm? Su Chen asked. Yu Zhenaya explained. Generally speaking, the price of a master of the Xianshan realm is about 10 million to 20 million per month. If it is a master of the peak of the Xianshan realm or a particularly powerful Yuan Qi master, the price may be 30 million. But the master my brother hired is only in the early stage of the Xianshan realm. My brother gave him 15 million a month, which is already very fair. Su Chen asked, how much does he want to raise the price to now? 30 million. Yu Zhenaya rolled her eyes. What's more, he also proposed that every time he made a move, he would have to add another 5 million. This is obviously taking advantage of my brother. Su Chen smiled. This grandmaster in the early stage of Xianshan realm is indeed not worth this price. Yu Zhenyu said angrily, but this bastard is relying on the fact that he is a member of the Wu Meng, so he dares to blackmail my brother. Su Chen was stunned. He is actually a member of the Wu Meng? It seems that he should know Guan Yuanshan. He thought about it and said, take me to meet your brother. Maybe I can help him solve this problem. Yu Zhenyu's eyes lit up. Su Chen, do you want to take this job and protect me? Su Chen said, you think too much. I don't have so much free time. Yu Zhenyu immediately became dejected. Okay. Stop pouting. You can almost tire donkey. Su Chen said helplessly, in the future, if you encounter any troubles that you can't solve, come to me, and I will help you. Yu Zhenyu smiled. Thank you. I knew you wouldn't ignore me. Then, Yu Zhenyu led Su Chen to the reception room on the side. At this time, Yu Fei was frowning. Brother, look, who's here? Yu Zhenyu shouted excitedly. Yu Fei was surprised to see Su Chen. Mr. Su, why are you here? Su Chen glanced at Yu Zhenyu who was standing beside him. Yu Zhenyu said proudly, this is all my credit. I sent an invitation letter to Zhou Wanqiu of the Zhou family in Bincheng. When Zhou Wanqiu came, Su Chen, the secretary, followed him. Ha ha ha. You are really clever. Yu Fei laughed. Then he said to Su Chen, Mr. Su, please take a seat. I'll make you a cup of tea. Su Chen waved his hand. No need to bother, Mr. Yu. I heard that you were in some trouble and wanted to come and see if I could help. Yu Fei made tea for Su Chen, then sighed. Oh, was it Zhenyu who told you? Now, the situation in the provincial capital is getting more and more complicated. I've been worried about Zhenyu's safety. Originally, I had already found a bodyguard to protect her, but now I've raised the price at the last minute. Su Chen nodded. This was similar to what Yu Zhenyu said. Yu Fei looked melancholy. Mr. Su, let me tell you the truth. It's not that I'm reluctant to spend the money, but I can't swallow this breath. In addition, I'm also worried that, if I give him this time, the other party may go even further. Su Chen asked, I heard that the masters you hired are from the Wu Meng? Yes. Yu Fei explained. Martial arts cultivators at the Xianshan realm are either from a family or from a big force. Even if there are some scattered ones, they will be absorbed by the Wu Meng. Now, if you want to hire some Xianshan realm masters as bodyguards, you can only go to the Wu Meng. This is also the confidence that Qi Yaoi dares to challenge me. Qi Yaoi. This should be the name of the Yuan Qi Grandmaster. Yu Zhenyu also pouted and said, Grandmaster Qi is just relying on his origin from the Wu Meng to scare people. If we refuse his request, we can't hire other people from the Wu Meng. It's really shameless. Su Chen sneered. After thinking for a while, Su Chen said, Mr. Yu, please take me to see this Grandmaster Qi. I want to see how shameless he is to ask for such a high price. Yu Fei paused. Then, he smiled and said, okay, Mr. Su. At this time, in a room, 3 martial arts practitioners were chatting. Among the 3, the one in the middle was about 60 years old, with 2 mustaches on his mouth and a lot of vitality. This person was Qi Yaoi, who was at the Xianshan realm. On both sides of Qi Yaoi were 2 masters of Zhuanjin. At this time, a Zhuanjin master said, Master Qi, isn't your price too high? Yu Fei might not agree to it. Qi Yaoi sneered. He can't refuse to agree to this. Recently, someone must have been eyeing Yu Fei and Zhu Zhenyu, so he urgently needs a Yuan Qi master. If I don't take this opportunity to make a profit, there will be no such good opportunity in the future. Another Zhuanjin master said, yes. 30 million a month. This is the price of the peak of the Xianshan realm. What's more, there is a 5 million per shot fee. Just thinking about it is great. Qi Yaoi had a proud smile on his face. He looked at the Zhuanjin masters on his left and right. Don't worry, you two will get some benefits. When the time comes, I will force Yu Fei to sign you too. The price is 5 million and 500,000 per shot. The 2 Zhuanjin masters were immediately ecstatic. The price of a Zhuanjin master is generally 1 or 2 million a month. Qi Yaoi directly increased it by 2 or 3 times, and there is also a separate shot fee. This is so cool. Thank you, Grandmaster Qi. Grandmaster Qi is so awesome. The two bowed in thanks. Qi Yaowei, on the other hand, was very pleased. He could win people's hearts without spending his own money. This deal was worth it. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Qi Yaowei winked at the two Zhuanjin grandmasters. The three of them immediately frowned. "Come in." Qi Yaowei's voice fell. The door opened, and Yu Filei, Yu Zhenyu and Su Chen came in. Qi Yaowei smiled when he saw Yu Filei. "Boss Yu, you should have considered the conditions I proposed." Yu Filei nodded and said, "I have considered it." Qi Yaowei smiled and said, "Just agree to it. By the way, my friend who is a Zhuanjin master, 5 million a month, plus a 500,000 shot once, should be no problem, right?" Yu Filei said coldly, "Did you not hear clearly? What I said is, I have considered it. I don't agree." One sentence. The room suddenly became quiet. The smile on Qi Yaowei's face froze instantly. "What did you say?" He stared at Yu Filei. "Yu Filei, this joke is not funny." Yu Filei said in a deep voice, "The price of a Yuan-Qi master is generally below 20 million. Your price is too outrageous. And the price of a Zhuanjin master you just mentioned is also unreasonable." Bang. Qi Yaowei slapped the table. Crash. A fine wooden table was instantly broken into pieces. "Yu Filei, have you thought clearly? What are you talking about?" Qi Yaowei said coldly, "I tell you, if you don't agree to my conditions, you can't find a Xiantian bodyguard in the Wumeng. Your family is already not peaceful. If there is no Yuan-Qi master to escort you, someone will die. You have to think clearly. Is your life and your sister's life more important, or is money more important?" Qi Yaowei's words were full of threats. Su Chen's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. Chapter 541 You're not worth the money. A trace of hesitation flashed across Yu Filei's face. Those words of refusal just now were all asked by Su Chen. At this time, Yu Filei looked at Su Chen. Su Chen said lightly, "It's okay. Just let them go. It's just a Yuan-Qi master. It's nothing." Qi Yaowei turned his head and looked at Su Chen with a murderous look in his eyes. But Su Chen turned a blind eye. His idea was very simple. Although Su Chen didn't have many high-level warriors, he could still take out a Yuan-Qi master. Tan Yangshan has been assigned to Sun Zhaoxing and is unlikely to move. But Su Chen still has Wang Shen. Since Wang Shen fell out with Jindanglei of Dan Group, he has not found a new place to go. Therefore, he can be temporarily arranged to be Yu Zhenyu's bodyguard. Therefore, the Yu brothers and sisters really don't need to suffer Qi Yaowei's humiliation. The conversation between Qi Yaowei and his two subordinates just now has been heard clearly by Su Chen. He is very disgusted with these three people who took advantage of the fire. Qi Yaowei looked grim, staring at Su Chen. Su Chen looked calm, looking at him indifferently. Qi Yaowei said coldly, "Boss Yu, do you believe this kid or me?" Yu Filei didn't hesitate and bowed to Qi Yaowei. "Master Qi, even if our deal doesn't work out, we still have friendship. We'll have a chance to work together again in the future." Swish. Qi Yaowei's face flushed instantly. He thought Yu Filei would choose him, but Yu Filei actually listened to the young man. Qi Yaowei said coldly, "Boy, you dare to ruin my business?" Su Chen smiled and said, "It was a mutually negotiated deal. Boss, you didn't accept your price, so you just lowered it. How can you blame me?" Sharp-tongued. Qi Yaowei snorted coldly, "Show him some color." "Yes." Master Zhuanjin on Qi Yaowei's left nodded. Then, his figure instantly pounced on Su Chen. Sky-splitting palm. In an instant. On his palm shadow, terrifying Zhuanjin condensed, and he slapped Su Chen fiercely. The terrifying palm shadow brought gusts of wind, as if to tear everything apart. Even though Yu Filei and Yu Zhenyu knew how powerful Su Chen was, they couldn't help but scream. However, Su Chen just smiled coldly. Then, he raised his hand and slapped him. Although the sky-splitting palm was fast, it was not faster than Su Chen's slap. Snap. Su Chen directly broke through the heavy palm shadows and hit Master Zhuanjin's face accurately. Puff. The Master Zhuanjin spurted out a mouthful of blood, and the whole person fell hard against the wall. Then he slowly slid down. For a moment, the whole room was quiet. Another Master Zhuanjin's face changed drastically. "Senior brother," he shouted, and then took a stance. Tazu long fist. In an instant, a huge amount of Zhuanjin began to condense in his hand. Even the air seemed to be compressed at this moment. The next second, he punched out. The terrifying fist shadow, carrying a violent fist force, hit Su Chen fiercely. Su Chen stood still and let the fist hit him. Puff. The violent fist wind blew in his face, and after the fist shadow, a fist hit Su Chen's chest fiercely. Everyone looked up, but they saw that Su Chen was as if nothing had happened. How is this possible? The Zhou Wanqiu master was stunned. Su Chen smiled coldly. With your strength, you still have the nerve to ask for 5 million a month. Being ridiculed like this, the Zhou Wanqiu master's face was extremely ugly. Su Chen didn't wait for him to speak and kicked him. Bang! The Zhou Wanqiu master in front of him was immediately shot out like a cannonball, and his direction was exactly Qi Yaohui. Qi Yaohui stood up quickly. He was in a hurry and wanted to catch the Zhou Wanqiu master. As a result, he felt an irresistible force coming. Puff! The two fell to the ground together. Qi Yaohui stood up in a panic, his face full of anger. Little beast, how dare you tease me? As soon as the voice fell, Qi Yaohui rushed directly towards Su Chen. Su Chen sneered, come on. Let me see how powerful a master of the Xianshan realm who earns 30 million a month is. Qi Yaohui was furious, and the fiery red vitality in his hand was boiling. Burning bone palm. Su Chen smiled coldly, and then greeted it with a palm. Bang! Snap! A burst of bone-breaking sounds came instantly. Ah! Qi Yaohui screamed miserably. Su Chen kicked out. Qi Yaohui immediately flew out like a rolling gourd. Su Chen said coldly, your 30 million is really not worth it. Qi Yaohui struggled to get up from the ground, and his face was sweating from the pain. On the side, Yu Fei was already stunned. Yu Fei had never seen Su Chen take action, and now seeing it, he was immediately shocked. In his eyes, Qi Yaohui's cultivation level was already very terrifying. But Qi Yaohui was like a child in front of Su Chen. Yu Zhenai was even more surprised. Qi Yaohui stared at Su Chen with his eyes. Asshole, who are you? Su Chen smiled and said, I know how much I'm worth. Qi Yaohui looked grim. Boy, don't think you can be arrogant just because you have some talent in martial arts. I tell you, I came from the Wu League. If you hit me, you will die. We have 5 elders in the Wu League, and there is also a leader who is even more powerful. You will be hunted down to death in the future. Su Chen's eyes were cold. Just because I disturbed you, and you raise the price, you want to kill me in the Wu League. You are so arrogant. I'll ask someone to ask if this is true. As he spoke, Su Chen picked up the phone and dialed the number of Guan Yuanshan, the 5th elder of the Wu League. Guan Yuanshan shuddered when he received Su Chen's call. Before, Guan Qinghe attacked Li Qingyan in the fireworks bar, Su Chen beat up the two brothers, and then demanded 2.5 billion from Guan Yuanshan. Now, he hasn't paid back the money yet. Guan Yuanshan swallowed his saliva and answered the phone. He said bitterly, hello. Mr. Su, please give me 2 days. I'm still collecting money. On the other side, Su Chen's voice came coldly, come to the Langshan Hall of Fuelin Hotel, reception room number 3. I want to see your person within 20 minutes. Okay. Guan Yuanshan agreed immediately. After hanging up the phone, Guan Yuanshan rushed out directly. In the reception room, Su Chen put away his mobile phone. Qi Yaohui looked at Su Chen in a daze. Who are you calling? Su Chen said, the 5th elder of your Wu Meng, Guan Yuanshan. I'll call him to ask if your Wu Meng's pricing is like this. Also ask how your Wu Meng plans to hunt me down later. Qi Yaohui was stunned, with an unbelievable look on his face. You know our 5th elder? Su Chen smiled. Wait another 20 minutes, and you'll know. Qi Yaohui's face was ugly, and he swallowed his saliva. He didn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. Su Chen just called the 5th elder, who dares to talk to Guan Yuanshan in that tone, and asked him to get here within 20 minutes. It's ridiculous. Yu Fei and Zhu Zhenai also looked at Su Chen with some worry. Su Chen smiled at them. Time passed quickly. Qi Yaohui, who was originally nervous, also had a hint of sneer on his face. Haha, didn't you say you knew our 5th elder? Where is he now? Boy, don't pretend. At this moment, Mr. Su, can I come in? Guan Yuanshan's voice sounded. Qi Yaohui stood there in shock. He was very familiar with this voice. It was the 5th elder of the Wu Meng, Guan Yuanshan. Qi Yaohui stared at Su Chen with an expression of disbelief. Chapter 542 A Sad Face. Come in. Su Chen said coldly. The door opened. A familiar figure walked in quickly. It was Guan Yuanshan. Guan Yuanshan walked into the room quickly and was stunned when he saw Qi Yaowei. Qi Yaowei was even more dumbfounded. Fifth Elder. Guan Yuanshan shuddered in his heart. He already understood that it was probably Qi Yaowei who caused the big trouble. Guan Yuanshan cursed in his heart. You said you could provoke anyone else, but you had to provoke this old man. Guan Yuanshan ignored Qi Yaowei and walked quickly to Su Chen. Mr. Su, good evening. Guan Yuanshan was very respectful, bowed deeply and lowered his head very low. After all, he was very clear about Su Chen's martial arts cultivation. More importantly, he still owed Su Chen money, so he couldn't raise his head. Qi Yaowei's heart sank when he saw this scene. You know, Guan Yuanshan is not a good-tempered person. In the martial arts alliance, even the first elder and the second elder could not make him so respectful. It can be said that, except for the leader of the Wu Meng, no one can make Guan Yuanshan bow his head. But now, Qi Yaowei finally understood what kind of existence he had provoked. However, it was too late to regret. Su Chen pointed at Qi Yaowei and said coldly, is this guy from your Wu Meng? Guan Yuanshan nodded and said, Mr. Su, yes. Su Chen sneered, you Wu Meng are very domineering. A grandmaster in the early stage of the Xianshan realm dares to ask for 30 million a month. Moreover, you also add an extra 5 million for each time you make a move. If I accidentally affect the business of this high-priced grandmaster, will I be hunted down by you Wu Meng to death? Guan Yuanshan shuddered. He already understood what happened. Guan Yuanshan said quickly, Mr. Su, please understand. This is not the rule of our Wu Meng. This price must be Qi Yaowei's exorbitant price. It has nothing to do with our Wu Meng. Moreover, our Wu Meng will only protect the legitimate interests of Wu Meng members and will never take action against Mr. Su because of such a thing. Qi Yaowei's behavior is a disgrace to our Wu Meng's reputation. We must punish him severely. Guan Yuanshan quickly expressed his attitude. Qi Yaowei trembled all over. It's over. He is in trouble now. Are you sure about this? Su Chen stared at Guan Yuanshan. He just said that a master of Zhuanjin would charge 5 million a month. This is pure bullshit. Guan Yuanshan cursed. Such a price is simply unscrupulous. We in the martial alliance will never do such a thing. Our price is absolutely the fairest and most reasonable. Su Chen nodded. That's good. He pointed at Yu Fei and Zhu Zinayu and said lightly, my two friends now need bodyguards in the Xianshan realm, at least in the late or peak stage. You name me a price. Guan Yuanshan was stunned. Mr. Su, we do have bodyguards in the peak stage of the Xianshan realm. The price is about 30 million a month. Su Chen raised his eyebrows. This price doesn't seem reasonable. Don't we old friends get discounts? Guan Yuanshan's mouth twitched and finally gritted his teeth and said, then, that 20 million, 15 million. It can't be lower. Su Chen smiled. He patted Guan Yuanshan on the shoulder. Okay, this is the price. As expected, we are old friends. You won't cheat me. Guan Yuanshan forced a bitter smile on his face. The price of 15 million can invite a ghost to the peak of the Xianshan realm. This time, he might have to pay for it himself. On the side, Yu Fei and Zhu Zinayu suddenly showed excitement on their faces. As expected, it was Mr. Su who solved the problem with one move. Su Chen turned around and asked, Boss Yu, Zinayu, do you have any other requests? No. The two smiled and shook their heads. This result has made them very satisfied. Su Chen waved to Guan Yuanshan. Okay, take them away. Remember, teach them well in the future and be a kind person like you. Guan Yuanshan's mouth twitched again. Okay. Mr. Su, thank you for your compliment. Then, Guan Yuanshan and Qi Yaowei picked up the two Zhuanjin masters and ran away. The two ran a long way before they stopped. After putting down the two unconscious Zhuanjin masters, Qi Yaowei asked in confusion, Fifth Elder, why should we be afraid of that kid? With your cultivation. Before he could finish, Guan Yuanshan sneered, with my cultivation, I may not last more than 10 seconds. Qi Yaowei was stunned. 10 seconds? Guan Yuanshan said coldly, Master Cheng is dead. Do you know about this? Qi Yaowei was startled. Could it be that young man just now? His name is Su Chen. He only used one move. Guan Yuanshan said in a deep voice. Then, he told him what happened in the fireworks bar that night. Qi Yaoi was instantly soaked in cold sweat. Only then did he realize that he had just escaped with his life. Thank you, fifth elder. Qi Yaoi thanked him quickly. Guan Yuanshan said coldly, no need to thank me. But, you heard it just now. Yu Fule is looking for the peak of the Xianshan realm. He needs 30 million, but they only offer 15 million. You pay the difference of 15 million. Ah. Qi Yao's face suddenly turned bitter. In the reception room, Yu Fule was excited. Mr. Su, thank you so much. You have helped me a lot. On the side, Yu Zhenyu smiled and said, brother, I told you a long time ago that it will be easy to solve it by asking Mr. Su. You still insisted that the other party is a martial alliance and Mr. Su can't handle it. Yu Fule's past was exposed, and he looked embarrassed. Su Chen smiled. I just happen to know this Guan Yuanshan. Yu Fule smiled and said, looking at your relationship with him, it doesn't seem like you just know him by chance. Haha. No fight, no acquaintance. Su Chen laughed. Yu Fule and Yu Zhenyu were stunned, and immediately guessed what happened between the two. Ha ha ha. The two laughed. Yu Zhenyu looked at Su Chen and said, Su Chen, why don't you come and protect me? I'll offer you a price of 100 million per month. I think you must be better than the Yuanqi master of the Wumeng. Su Chen smiled and said, I have too many things to do, and I don't have the time. Yu Zhenyu pouted, are you talking about that Zhou Wanqiu? Su Chen was stunned and denied, no, I really don't have time. Okay. Yu Zhenyu said helplessly. The three chatted for a while. Su Chen looked at the time and returned to the hall. After returning to the hall, Su Chen looked around casually and soon found Zhou Wanqiu. At this time, Zhou Wanqiu has completely become familiar with the business circle of the provincial capital. At this moment, she is talking to several business people in suits and leather shoes. Seeing her chatting and laughing, she seems to have integrated very well. Zhou Wanqiu's side is going smoothly at this time. But someone has a miserable look on his face. After 2 o'clock. Chapter 543. Still sleeping in the same room. In a corner. Kang Qingyuan looked dissatisfied. He looked at Bei Xinlei and asked, Uncle, why? Why do you want to hand over my company? Fixing Entertainment Media is my hard work. I won't hand it over. Slap. Bei Xinlei slapped Kang Qingyuan in the face. Do you want to die? Bei Xinlei's eyes were cold. Kang Qingyuan looked puzzled. Uncle, why are you so afraid of that bastard? I don't believe he dares to kill me. I have you and the Bei family behind me. Bei Xinlei said coldly. Do you know that the Bei family is nothing in his eyes? Kang Qingyuan was stunned. Bei Xinlei continued. Have you heard from your mother that something happened to the Bei family these 2 days? Kang Qingyuan nodded. It seems to be the case. Could it be because of that Su Chen just now? Kang Qingyuan widened his eyes. Bei Xinlei nodded. Gulp. Kang Qingyuan swallowed deeply. Before, he heard from his mother that something happened to the Bei family. Not only was someone beaten up at the door, but also a lot of money was paid in compensation. Kang Qingyuan thought his mother was joking, but it turned out to be true. Uncle, can't the Bei family do anything about this bastard? Doesn't the Bei family have a God Realm expert? Kang Qingyuan asked in confusion. Bei Xinlei sighed. This Su Chen also has a God Realm expert behind him. Moreover, his personal strength is not weaker than the God Realm, but his realm is only the innate realm. Even if my uncle wants to deal with him, he is very limited. Hiss. Kang Qingyuan took a breath. Thinking about Su Chen's age, he couldn't connect Su Chen with a God Realm expert. But, uncle, I really don't want to give him my Fixing Entertainment Media. Kang Qingyuan pleaded. Bei Xinlei glared. Then who can you blame? It's because you are so mean that you have to provoke that Zhou Wanqiu. Otherwise how could this happen today? Kang Qingyuan lowered his head. Bei Xinlei sighed. Now, this kid is in the limelight. You'd better bow your head obediently. Even our Bei family has compensated 20 billion. What's yours? Tomorrow, you'd better contact him obediently and give him the company. If you play any tricks, I can't protect you. Kang Qingyuan looked desperate. Bei Xinlei saw his appearance and felt a little bit reluctant. He advised, don't worry. This kid won't jump for a few days. As soon as the dragon slayer leaves, our Bei family will start to deal with him. By then, Su Chen will definitely die. And the Bei family's 20 billion will also be taken back, and your company can also be taken back. So, at this point in time, don't make a fool of yourself. Otherwise, he will find a reason to kill you, and your death will be in vain. Kang King Yuan suddenly became excited. Okay, uncle, I will give him the company tomorrow. You must kill this bastard as soon as possible. Yes. Bei Xinlei nodded. Fuelin Hotel. Langshan Hall. Su Chen saw that Zhou Wanqiu was still socializing, so he found a corner to practice silently. Soon, Yu Fule and Zhu Zenai also came out. Today, the person who hosted the cocktail party was indeed Yu Zenai. Yu Zenai seemed to have learned a lot from Yu Fule, and she hosted the party maturely and generously, very professionally. What surprised Su Chen was that Yu Zenai actually pulled Zhou Wanqiu onto the stage to introduce her to everyone present. This made Zhou Wanqiu both excited and terrified. The people from the provincial business circle below the stage immediately raised their evaluation of Zhou Wanqiu and Zhao's catering to a higher level. When Zhou Wanqiu stepped down from the stage, more people immediately came up to say hello. Su Chen smiled and looked at Yu Zenai. The eldest princess of Fuyu group knows how to do things. Until the end of the cocktail party, Zhou Wanqiu still looked excited. Get in the car. Zhou Wanqiu said excitedly. Su Chen, our debut in the provincial capital business district this time was so successful. Because of you, I have made a lot of friends. After Yu Zenai introduced me, Zhao's catering was equivalent to being endorsed by Fuelin Group. You don't know, there are already several companies in the food and catering field who want to cooperate with us. This is great. Zhou Wanqiu was very excited and kept talking. Su Chen smiled and said, Boss Zhao is so amazing, he will definitely succeed immediately. Zhou Wanqiu blushed. She said shyly, I should thank you. If you hadn't made the Bei family bow their heads, Miss you probably wouldn't have noticed me. Thank you, Su Chen. Su Chen smiled. Why are you being polite to me? See, this is the benefit of fighting. Don't stop me from fighting in the future. Zhou Wanqiu immediately glared. What benefit of fighting? I'd rather not have this benefit than watch you fight every day. What if you get beaten to death one day? Su Chen smiled. It's okay. I'll only fight those I can beat in the future. That won't work either. Zhou Wanqiu raised her eyebrows. What if I get into trouble? Su Chen smiled helplessly. Soon, the two returned to Jiu Tangsheng mansion. Su Chen asked, which room should I sleep in? Zhou Wanqiu was stunned. Her pretty face blushed and said, You sleep in the same room with me. Su Chen was slightly stunned and asked back, aren't there two empty rooms? Can't I just choose one? Zhou Wanqiu glared. Don't you really want to share a room with me? Su Chen looked at Zhou Wanqiu with a puzzled look. Zhou Wanqiu's face suddenly became even redder. She explained in a panic. I mean, Grandpa and my mother might come to the provincial capital to see me. What if they suddenly attack and find that we are not sleeping in the same room? Wouldn't that be terrible? The more Zhou Wanqiu talked, the more she felt justified. Su Chen thought about it and felt that it made some sense. He looked at Zhou Wanqiu's room and asked in confusion, You don't have a bed on the floor in your room? Zhou Wanqiu's voice was like a mosquito. If it doesn't work, you can sleep on the bed. Anyway, this bed is big, we can sleep on both ends. Before she finished speaking, Su Chen said, Don't bother. I'll go to the next room and bring a quilt. After speaking, Su Chen turned around and went to the next room. Zhou Wanqiu was stunned. Her pretty face was so red that it seemed like water was about to drip. Asshole, sleep to death. Zhou Wanqiu stomped her feet fiercely. When Su Chen returned to Zhou Wanqiu's room with the quilt, he found that she was already removing her macup with a cold face. The whole person looked like she wanted to keep strangers away. Su Chen was puzzled. Wasn't this woman fine just now? That night, Su Chen and Zhou Wanqiu regained the feeling of Bincheng. The next morning, Zhou Wanqiu got up early and went out to do something. When Su Chen came out after washing up, Zhou Wanqiu was putting breakfast on plates and bowls. She looked at Su Chen and said, I accidentally made too much breakfast. Do you want to eat it? Su Chen was stunned. Zhou Wanqiu immediately said in shame and anger, Do you want to eat it? If not, I will throw it away. Eat, eat, eat. Su Chen said hurriedly. Then, he quickly ran to the table, picked up the eggs Zhou Wanqiu fried and stuffed them into his mouth. Zhou Wanqiu only smiled a little. However, she still said with disgust, slow down. You are wolfing it down. What a look. Is it delicious? Zhou Wanqiu asked casually. Su Chen wanted to say it was a bit salty. However, he noticed Zhou Wanqiu's expectant eyes and quickly changed his words. Delicious. Very delicious. Zhou Wanqiu's face was delighted, and she snorted. You didn't chew it a few times. What flavor can you taste? A cow chewing a peony. As she spoke, she put her fried egg into Su Chen's bowl. Here you go. Anyway, I don't like these greasy things. Su Chen looked at the fried eggs, then looked up at Zhou Wanqiu. Didn't this woman also eat fried eggs when she was in Bincheng? However, Su Chen was too lazy to think more, and put it in his mouth and ate it. Thank you. Su Chen smiled. After breakfast. Ding-ling-ling. Su Chen's cell phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. He thought about it and answered it. Hello, Mr. Su. This is Kang King-Gion. Aren't I going to transfer the company to you? Can you come to the company now? Su Chen was startled. He almost forgot that there was such a thing. But he doesn't know how to do these things at all. What should I do? The 4th update is here. Good night everyone. Finally restored. Chapter 544 Taking Over Fixing. Su Chen said, send me the address of your company. I'll be there soon. Okay. Kang King-Gion agreed immediately. After hanging up the phone, Su Chen thought about it. At this time, he could only borrow someone. Who should he find? The Yao family? Su Chen thought about it, and finally gave up. Although the Yao family has a big business, it seems that they rarely get involved in the field of entertainment and media. Suddenly, Su Chen thought of someone. Yu Fulei. The president of the Provincial Capital Chamber of Commerce is a recognized investment genius. There should be similar industry talents in the companies he invested in. Su Chen picked up his mobile phone and called Yu Fulei. Soon, the call was connected. Yu Fulei asked in surprise, Mr. Su, what do you want to talk to me about? Su Chen got straight to the point. Mr. Yu, do you have any management talents in the field of entertainment and media? Yu Fulei was stunned. Then, he thought of what his sister had told him last night. You are going to take over Kang King-Gion's Fixing Entertainment Media Group, right? Yes. Su Chen nodded. Yu Fulei smiled and said, don't worry. I just happen to have invested in an entertainment media company. I'll call now and send you a capable person. I promise that you can take over smoothly and be a hands-off boss. Su Chen asked, thank you so much. Will it delay your business? Yu Fulei explained, don't worry. My entertainment media company is not developing well. Kang King-Gion is not very capable in other aspects, but he has some talent in the field of entertainment media. His Fixing group is developing very well. In addition, this kid entered the industry early and has seized many markets and resources. In particular, the cooperation with TV news and other media in the provincial capital is basically monopolized by this kid. I entered the market a little late, so I haven't had time to grab much market from him. If you take down his group, my people will go to your side and show their skills. Su Chen nodded. Yu Fulei's meaning is very clear. Now, Su Chen has taken over Kang King-Gion's Fixing group. Then the entertainment and media companies under Yu Fulei will no longer compete for the market. Therefore, those capable people in his company can be given to Su Chen. Su Chen smiled and said, Mr. Yu, how can I feel embarrassed to do this? Otherwise, I will consider you as a talent and invest in your shares. Hearing this, Yu Fulei smiled and said, aren't you slapping me in the face? You have helped me so much. How can I feel embarrassed to ask for your shares? Just use them with confidence. I will call my men now and ask them to wait for you at the entrance of Fixing Group, okay? Su Chen smiled and said, okay, then I thank Mr. Yu very much. You're welcome. Yu Fulei smiled. After hanging up the phone, Su Chen said hello to Zhou Wanqiu. Zhou Wanqiu looked at Su Chen suspiciously, then waved his hand. Let's go. You are annoying me at home. By the way, in 2 days, you will accompany me to a place. Su Chen nodded and agreed. Then, Su Chen left home. He got in a taxi and soon arrived at the entrance of Kang King-Gion's company. A big signboard with Fixing Entertainment Media Group on it is very conspicuous. Most of the people coming in and out are beautiful women and handsome men. There are even some little stars who have been on TV. Are you Mr. Su Chen? A voice sounded. Su Chen turned his head to look. The person who came was a woman in her 30s. She was wearing a neat little suit on the upper body and a professional short skirt on the lower body. Her straight and slender legs were wrapped in black stockings, and her figure was also exquisite. On her pretty face, there was light makeup. With short hair, she looked very capable. Su Chen nodded. Hello, I'm Su Chen. A smile appeared on the woman's face. Hello, Mr. Su. My name is Gu Qingjun, and General Manager Yufei arranged for me to wait for you here. In addition, I also brought a professional legal and financial team, waiting for your arrangement at any time. Gu Qingjun said, while looking at Su Chen with some curiosity. She was very confused in her heart. Where did this young man with a delicate appearance come from? Kang Qingyuan actually handed over the Fixing Group, which he regarded as a treasure. And Yufei did not say anything, and directly lent him all the backbones of his media company. Su Chen looked at Gu Qingjun, and was quite satisfied. She even brought a team with her. She was really professional. He smiled and said, this time we came here, mainly to take over Fixing Entertainment Media. As for the future operation and management, I don't know much, so I have to ask Miss Gu for help. Gu Qingjun's face showed a trace of excitement. She hurriedly said, don't worry, I will definitely not let you down. Su Chen nodded and asked, did you know about this Fixing Group? Of course. Gu Qingjun nodded. Fixing Group has always been our biggest rival. It's just that, because we entered the market relatively late, most of the media resources, network resources and channels in the provincial capital are controlled by the other party. Originally, our company planned to take half of their share in 3 years. But I didn't expect. At this point, Gu Qingjun shut up. Su Chen smiled and said, this is just the right way to reduce your workload. Let's go. Let's go up. Gu Qingjun nodded. She waved to the side, and immediately more than a dozen employees in suits ran over. These people were the team members she brought with her. This is Mr. Su, and he will be our boss in the future. Gu Qingjun introduced. Although everyone was a little surprised at Su Chen's age, they still hurriedly shouted, hello, boss. Su Chen was quite uncomfortable hearing this address. He raised his hand stiffly and smiled at everyone. Hello, everyone. Then, a group of people walked directly into the building. Kang Qingyuan had been waiting for a long time. Seeing Su Chen bringing these people, he sighed in his heart. It seems that Su Chen has been prepared for a long time. Kang Qingyuan briefly introduced the company to Su Chen. Then, he also talked about the company's existing media channels and resources. He even introduced many precautions to Su Chen and others. The degree of dedication was just like a patient master. It was completely impossible to tell that he and Su Chen were enemies. In fact, it was not that Kang Qingyuan was kind-hearted. It was because he was afraid that Su Chen would mess up and ruin his company. Kang Qingyuan was still waiting for the Bei family to kill Su Chen, and then he would take back Fixing Group. If Su Chen ruined the company during this period, Kang Qingyuan would not know where to cry. On the side, Gu Qingjun smiled and said, Boss Kang, you don't have to introduce these to us. Don't forget that sentence. The one who is most familiar with you is your enemy. I may be more familiar with your Fixing than you are. These two people are also acquaintances. Hearing this, Kang Qingyuan's expression froze. He snorted coldly, HMPH. Gu Qingjun, even if you are familiar with my Fixing, what's the use? Aren't you suppressed by me? Gu Qingjun smiled and said, how can you say it's useless? I'm here to take over your Fixing. Kang Qingyuan's face suddenly became ugly. At this moment, he was not in the mood to continue introducing to the few people. He led everyone to the conference room. The legal and financial departments of both sides began to hand over. Su Chen was depressed, signing one document after another, pressing one fingerprint after another. Su Chen was in great pain. If he had known it would be so troublesome, he would not have done this. Just give this broken company to Zhou Wanqiu. Fortunately, Gu Qingjun was by his side, so Su Chen was relieved. After a long time, it was finally done. Kang Qingyuan looked sad. He looked at Su Chen and begged, Mr. Su, you must run it well. Don't mess around. Su Chen looked amused. On the side, Gu Qingjun said, okay, Boss Kong, this will be our fixing from now on. You should do whatever you need to do. Kong Qingyuan left in despair. Everyone laughed out loud. Gu Qingjun said, Mr. Su, the employees of fixing group are all very experienced. My idea is that in the short term, try not to move these employees, to avoid too much fluctuation. What do you think? Su Chen nodded. Okay, you can make your own decisions on these business matters. Then, Gu Qingjun got busy. Su Chen was about to leave when suddenly his cell phone rang. Chapter 545. What a big frame. Su Chen looked at his phone. The person who called was actually Wang Shen. He answered the phone. Wang Shen asked cautiously, Mr. Su, are you busy now? Su Chen said lightly, not really, what's the matter? It's just a little thing. Wang Shen smiled and said, last time, didn't I tell you that I have a distant relative who has a serious health problem and I want to ask you to help treat him? Excuse me, do you have time to treat him now? Su Chen thought about it and agreed. Okay, where are you now? I'll find you. Wang Shen is also a strong man in the Xianshan realm. Help him this time, and Su Chen will be much easier to ask for him in the future. Wang Shen was overjoyed when he heard Su Chen agreed. He hurriedly said, Mr. Su, how can I let you come to me? Give me an address. I'll drive to pick you up, and we'll go to my distant relative's house together. Su Chen nodded. I'm at Fixing Entertainment Media Group now. Give me a call when you get there. Hey. Okay. Wang Shen was very happy. After hanging up the phone, Su Chen waited patiently for a while. Not long after, Wang Shen was already downstairs. Su Chen greeted Gu Qingjun and went downstairs directly. Gu Qingjun was already busy with work and didn't even see Su Chen off. Su Chen was not a person who cared about these empty formalities. On the contrary, he admired Gu Qingjun's work attitude. When Su Chen went downstairs, he saw Wang Shen driving an Audi A8 and waiting. Seeing Su Chen appear, Wang Shen got out of the car happily. Then, he trotted to the other side and helped Su Chen open the door. After Su Chen got in the car, he slowly closed the door and returned to his driver's seat again. Very respectful. The car started, driving towards the outskirts of the city. Mr. Su, thank you for agreeing to help. Wang Shen was quite excited. Su Chen smiled and said, don't thank me too early. Maybe I can't solve it. Wang Shen said, I'm already very satisfied that you are willing to help. Although he said so, Wang Shen still had confidence in Su Chen. Before, he was present when Su Chen treated Han Qiufeng's grandfather and father. Although he did not see Su Chen's action with his own eyes, the shock of those doctors alone was enough to judge Su Chen's medical skills. What's more, Wang Shen still clearly remembered that the divine doctor on the saint hand list had 3 needles and chased Su Chen to call him master. This situation made Wang Shen very confident in Su Chen. By the way, you don't seem to have told me yet, what's the matter with your distant relative? Su Chen asked. Wang Shen thought for a while and said, Mr. Su, my relative is a land immortal. Su Chen was startled and then returned to normal. However, he was really shocked. Good guy. Are land immortals so worthless now? Why are they running around? Wang Shen looked at Su Chen, but saw that Su Chen was just stunned for a moment and then returned to normal. He couldn't help but be shocked. It turned out that he was a big shot. Even if he heard about the divine realm, he didn't react much. Su Chen asked, how could he, a powerful god, get sick? He must be seriously injured, right? Wang Shen nodded. That's right. Elder Meng was seriously injured a few years ago, and he has been relying on various spiritual medicines and supplements to survive these years. Although Elder Meng and his disciples have been looking for famous doctors for treatment, the results are not very good. Su Chen immediately understood. No wonder Wang Shen was so eager to help his relative cure his illness himself. The favor of a land immortal is indeed very valuable. Soon, the car arrived at a manor. Wang Shen led Su Chen in. The servants here seemed to be very familiar with Wang Shen and did not stop them. The two walked into a villa in the center of the manor. The housekeeper was an old man. He was also familiar with Wang Shen. He said, Mr. Wang, please wait here. Elder Meng is upstairs. I will go and inform you. Thank you for your hard work, Housekeeper Li. Wang Shen nodded and said, please tell Elder Meng that I have brought a miracle doctor. Housekeeper Li nodded and walked away. Wang Shen and Su Chen sat down and waited patiently. Soon, Butler Li came down from upstairs and said, Mr. Wang, the master is busy now. Please wait a moment. Half an hour passed quickly. Su Chen frowned slightly. Wang Shen was also a little anxious. He turned to look at Butler Li. Butler Li, please go up and pass it on again. Butler Li nodded and walked to the second floor again. Wang Shen turned to look at Su Chen and apologized. Mr. Su, I'm really sorry. Maybe Mr. Meng really has something important. Su Chen nodded and said nothing. After a while, Butler Li stepped down. Mr. Wang, Mr. Meng is still busy. Please wait a moment. Butler Li apologized. Wang Shen was helpless. He turned around and looked at Su Chen again, clasping his fists apologetically. Su Chen said nothing. The two waited patiently again. Time flew quickly. Another half an hour passed. Wang Shen looked anxious. Su Chen also frowned slightly. Although the other party is a land immortal, it does not mean that Su Chen needs to please him. Seeing Su Chen's face, Wang Shen immediately said anxiously, Mr. Su, don't worry. I'll ask Butler Li again. Wang Shen stood up and walked to Butler Li. He said in a deep voice, Butler Li, please tell Mr. Meng clearly. This time, the miracle doctor I brought is the master of the miracle doctor Bincheng on the saint hand list. If he takes action, there is a great probability that he can cure Mr. Meng's injury. Butler Li smiled bitterly. Okay, Mr. Wang, don't worry, I'll go and tell you now. As he spoke, Butler Li ran quickly to the second floor. Not long after, Butler Li returned. Wang Shen hurriedly went up and asked, Butler Li, what did Mr. Meng say? Butler Li said, Mr. Meng said, wait a moment. Wang Shen also showed a trace of dissatisfaction on his face. He finally invited Su Chen. As a result, Meng Diqiu directly asked people to wait for an hour, and they still had to wait. This is too outrageous. Su Chen said coldly, Wang Shen, I don't think your distant relative needs my treatment. In that case, let's say goodbye. Wang Shen's face was in a panic. He hurried to Su Chen. Mr. Su, please give me face and wait a little longer. Please. Seeing Wang Shen's pleading look, Su Chen said coldly, 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, I will turn around and leave. Wang Shen's face was happy. Thank you, Mr. Su. Thank you. Wang Shen turned to look at Butler Li. Butler Li, can you tell Mr. Meng that the miracle doctor will leave in 10 minutes? Butler Li smiled bitterly. Mr. Wang, you know Mr. Meng's temper. If you tell him like this, he will probably drive you away now. Wang Shen was stunned. He almost forgot about Meng Diqiu's bad temper. Alas. Wang Shen could only sigh, sit on the chair, and wait patiently. Housekeeper Li thought for a moment and said, Mr. Wang, I will go to the second floor door now. If Mr. Meng is done with his work, I will come to call you first. Thank you for your hard work, Housekeeper Li. Wang Shen bowed. Housekeeper Li sighed and walked up to the second floor. Su Chen looked indifferent. If the land immortal surnamed Meng still put on airs 10 minutes later, he would turn around and leave. He was just a god, not worthy of Su Chen's warm face and cold butt. He just felt that Wang Shen was a little pitiful, and it was difficult to be caught in the middle. Time passed by. Wang Shen became more and more desperate. 10 minutes, it will be here soon. Su Chen opened his eyes and prepared to get up and leave. On the side, Wang Shen also gave up completely. At this moment, thump thump thump, a burst of hurried footsteps came from the stairs. Housekeeper Li said with joy, Mr. Wang, this miracle doctor, Mr. Meng, is free now. You can go up. Wang Shen was overjoyed. Mr. Su, let's go. Let's go upstairs. Su Chen nodded. He suppressed his dissatisfaction and walked upstairs. Su Chen also wanted to see why this land immortal was so arrogant. Chapter 546. As long as you don't die, you will come to me for help sooner or later. Wang Shen and Su Chen followed Butler Li upstairs. There were not many rooms on the second floor, and there was a large martial arts training ground. Butler Li led the two to a room and knocked on the door. Come in. A deep voice came. Butler Li opened the door, and Wang Shen and Su Chen stepped in. As soon as they entered the door, there was a faint smell of herbs. Moreover, in this herbal smell, Su Chen also smelled another smell. Su Chen frowned slightly. Looking up, there was an old man in cloth sitting on a wooden couch. The old man's hair and beard were all white, his face was pale, and he looked exhausted. However, the aura around this person was very sharp. Even Su Chen felt a faint pressure. Judging from his appearance, this person was the land immortal that Wang Shen mentioned, Mr. Meng. Beside the old man, there were two middle-aged men and an old man. The middle-aged man was wearing a training suit, the old man on the side was carrying a medicine box and seemed to be a doctor. The two looked at Su Chen with a hint of coldness. Su Chen looked puzzled. He seemed to not know these two people at all, so why were they hostile to him? Meng Diqiu looked up at Wang Shen and said, "Wang Shen, you are here?" Wang Shen nodded. He said with a little dissatisfaction, "Mr. Meng, it's too difficult to treat you. I finally invited a miracle doctor, but you made him wait for more than an hour." The middle-aged man on the side said coldly, "My master is a land immortal. It is your honor to be able to treat my master. No matter how long you wait, it's what you deserve. If you don't want to wait, just leave." Wang Shen was immediately furious. "Wei Chenke, what are you talking about? Do you know that Mr. Su Chen is a miracle doctor of his generation? Even the miracle doctor Bian Sanson on the saint hand list has to worship him as his teacher. You are so shameless. Don't you want Mr. Meng's injury to get better?" Wei Chenke's face changed. "Wang Shen, don't slander me. I visited famous doctors for my master's injury. Dr. Jing Zixu was found by me with great difficulty. He is a real miracle doctor on the saint hand list. I've never heard of Su Chen you mentioned." Meng Diqiu raised his hand slightly. He said in a deep voice, "Okay, stop arguing." Wei Chenke and Wang Shen shut up at the same time. A land immortal is still quite important. Meng Diqiu looked Su Chen up and down and asked, "You said this young man is a miracle doctor?" Wang Shen said quickly, "Mr. Meng, what I said is absolutely true. I have seen with my own eyes that two patients who had been declared dying by doctors were saved by Mr. Su. I also saw with my own eyes that the miracle doctor called Mr. Su his master. By the way, Zhang Zheheng, the vice president of the central hospital, also wants to invite Mr. Su to be an expert, and the conditions are arbitrary." Meng Diqiu showed hesitation in his eyes. At this time, on the side, Wei Chenke winked at Jing Zixu. Jing Zixu immediately said, "Nonsense, nonsense. What you said about resurrecting a patient who was declared dying by the doctor, everyone knows it's just acting. Besides, Bian Sanson is about 80 years old. Calling this young boy master, isn't that nonsense? Mr. Wang, don't just pull someone to act as a miracle doctor, just to ask for a favor from Mr. Meng, a land immortal." Wang Shen was so angry that his face flushed. Jing Zixu bowed to Meng Diqiu and said, "Mr. Meng, I have already adjusted your body. As long as you don't move around and take good care of yourself, you will recover soon. I hope you don't let those messy miracle doctors treat you. Otherwise, I'm worried that you will completely collapse." Meng Diqiu's face changed. He said in a deep voice, "Wang Shen, thank you for your kindness. However, you should be more careful in doing things in the future and don't be teased by others without knowing it. My body has been treated by the divine Dr. Jing, and it has improved a lot. You don't have to worry about it. Go back." Wang Shen was stunned. "Is your injury healed?" Wei Chenke smiled and said, "Of course. The divine doctor Mr. Jing Zixu, but I invited him specially for my master. Mr. Jing Zixu, known as the ghost doctor, naturally can cure diseases with ease. Now, my master only needs to rest for about 3 months, and he will naturally recover completely." Meng Diqiu also showed a trace of joy on his face. At this time, Su Chen said coldly, 3 months. Haha, I'm afraid that by then, Mr. Meng will be burned to ashes, right? As soon as these words came out, the room suddenly became quiet. Wang Shen was startled and looked at Su Chen. But Su Chen still looked calm. "Asshole, what are you talking about?" Wei Chenke's face changed and he shouted. Jing Zixu's eyes narrowed. Meng Diqiu's face was as gloomy as water. "Boy, you actually cursed me?" Su Chen looked at Meng Diqiu coldly. "I'm not cursing you, but telling you a fact. The injuries in your body should be the collapse of your danshan and the rupture of your meridians. Over the years, you have relied on your powerful personal skills to barely maintain it. Otherwise, you would have exploded and died long ago." Meng Diqiu was shocked. Su Chen was right about his physical condition. Su Chen continued, you think that after the treatment of this so-called miracle doctor, your meridians and anshan no longer have the tearing pain, which means they are recovering, right? Actually, you have been deceived. Nonsense. Wei Chenke said angrily, you bastard, you are obviously jealous. Look, Dr. Jing cured my master, and you lost the opportunity to please the immortals on land. So, you are talking nonsense and exaggerating. Su Chen sneered, whether you are talking nonsense or not, you will know after a test. As he spoke, he looked at Meng Qiu. If you believe me, then let your luck go down the tiny meridians in your body. Look, is the pain of meridian tearing still there? Meng Qiu's face changed slightly, and he was about to try it. At this time, Jing Zixu hurriedly said, Meng Wuxian, you must not do that. The medicine I prepared for you has just taken effect. Your meridians and anshan have just begun to recover. If you listen to this kid, your luck will flow through the small meridians, which may cause the injury to flare up, and make all your previous efforts go to waste. At this time, Wei Chenke also jumped out and cursed, asshole. Who sent you? Why are you trying so hard to harm my master? Su Chen sneered, someone does want to harm your master, but that person is probably you? Wei Chenke's face changed drastically, and then returned to normal. He turned around and cried to Meng Qiu, Master, I worked so hard to find Dr. Jing for you, and this bastard slandered me. Meng Qiu's face darkened. He said to Su Chen, boy, no matter whether your medical skills are real or fake, I'm recovering from my injuries now. So, go back to where you came from. Wang Shen's face changed, and he hurriedly shouted, Mr. Meng, please believe Suzanne, he is really a miracle doctor. Humph. Meng Qiu snorted coldly, I'm talking, don't you understand? Wang Shen's face was ugly, but he could only look at Su Chen helplessly. Su Chen sneered, Humph. You are a land immortal. I'm afraid your injury is to your brain. Wang Shen was shocked. It was too bold to talk to a land immortal like this. You. Meng Qiu's face flushed, boy, are you looking for death? If he was not recovering from his injuries, and couldn't get angry, he would probably do it now. Su Chen said coldly, you are the one who is looking for death. For Wang Shen's sake, I will give you a pill. Whenever you regret it, take it and beg me on your knees. Maybe I will save your life. As long as you don't die, you will beg me sooner or later. As he spoke, Su Chen ejected a pill. Whoosh. However, before the pill flew into Meng Qiu's hands, Wei Chenke flashed out and stretched out his hand to stop it. What a mess. You dare to send it to my master. You don't know what you are talking about. As he spoke, Wei Chenke threw Su Chen's pill directly on the ground. Bang. He raised his foot and crushed the pill directly. Meng Qiu's face changed slightly, but he didn't say anything. Su Chen looked at Wei Chenke and Jing Zixu coldly, turned around and left. Wang Shen was in a dilemma. He looked at Meng Qiu again. Meng Lao, you really made a mistake this time. Alas. After speaking, Wang Shen hurriedly chased after Su Chen. Cough cough cough. Meng Qiu coughed violently. Wei Chenke and Jing Zixu hurried forward and patted his back. Wei Chenke said coldly, Master, you shouldn't have met that bastard. He is obviously a big liar. And that Wang Shen, relying on the fact that he is a distant relative of yours, he is also arrogant. Meng Qiu sighed, okay. Stop talking, you guys go out. I'll take a rest. Wei Chenke said, Master, I'll accompany you. Go out. I'll take a rest. Meng Qiu insisted. Wei Chenke and Jing Zixu looked at each other, clasped their fists, and left the room. Meng Qiu looked at the closed door with a downcast look. His gaze suddenly turned to the ground. On the ground, there was a pile of powder. This was the pill that Su Chen had just thrown over, but it was crushed into powder by his apprentice. Meng Qiu's eyes flickered, and I don't know what he was thinking. The next chapter will be after 2:30. Let's go to bed first. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547, You know a person's face, but not his heart. Su Chen and Wang Shen walked out of Meng Qiu's manor. Wang Shen looked helpless. He gritted his teeth and leaned forward and said, "Mr. Su, I'm sorry for making you suffer this treatment." Su Chen waved his hand and said, "It's okay. Buddha can save those who are destined to die, and medicine can't cure fatal diseases. If he is destined to die, no one can save him." The two got in the car and drove away slowly. While driving, Wang Shen asked, "Is what you said just now true?" Su Chen nodded. "Will Mr. Meng die? He has survived all these years. How could he die suddenly?" Wang Shen's eyes widened. Su Chen said in a deep voice, "The problem lies with his apprentice and the miracle doctor he invited." Wang Shen was stunned. "Are you talking about Wei Chengke and Jing Zixu?" Su Chen explained. His injury should be due to the transition from a battle with the enemy in his early years, which seriously injured his meridians and danshan, so that his danshan collapsed, and his meridians were broken. If he fights, although he can exert a certain strength, he will have to endure severe pain, and there is a risk of collapse at any time. Even in daily practice, there will be severe pain when the qi runs through the meridians in the body. Wang Shen nodded. "That's right. Senior Meng DQ hasn't taken action for a long time, and he doesn't even dare to practice." Su Chen continued. "Then Jing Zixu used the Ningmei grass to temporarily stagnate Meng DQ's meridians and danshan, making him mistakenly think that he was recovering. But after the effect of the medicine wears off, his injuries will become more serious and may even collapse completely. The reason why I let him key to the small meridians is because the power of the medicine has not reached the small meridians. As long as he tries, he will definitely find something wrong." Wang Shen was confused, but Master Meng is Wei Chengke's master. He shouldn't lie to Master Meng like this, right? Su Chen sneered. "I'm afraid that good disciple did it. I just found that there are other poisons in Meng DQ's body, but it hasn't erupted yet. I guess Wei Chengke is waiting for the poison to erupt and make Meng DQ completely lose his resistance." Wang Shen was extremely anxious. "Mr. Su, why didn't you make it clear just now?" Su Chen sneered. "I said it. Will Meng DQ believe me?" Wang Shen was silent. Compared with Wei Chengke, a close disciple, Su Chen, an outsider, is definitely not trustworthy. Just now, Su Chen had made it clear enough, and even told the method, but in the end, he was still misled by 2 words from Wei Chengke. Wang Shen asked unwillingly, "Mr. Su, is there any hope for Mr. Meng, except waiting to die?" Su Chen nodded. "Yes, but there is no more." Wang Shen was stunned. Su Chen explained, "Originally, I left him a pill for your sake. If Meng DQ believed in me when he found out about his own problems and took that pill, maybe he would be able to muster up the strength to beg me. But unfortunately, that pill was crushed by Wei Chengke. So, even if he found out something was wrong, he would probably just have to wait for death." After saying that, there was a trace of regret on Su Chen's face. If he could save such a powerful god, he would have an extra high-end combat force in his hands in the future. Medicine can't cure a fatal disease. This man deserves to die, and Su Chen is too lazy to save him. The person who is saved in that way won't be grateful to Su Chen. Wang Shen was a little lost. Squeak. He pulled the car over and turned to look at Su Chen. "Mr. Su, can I send a message to Mr. Meng?" Su Chen said casually, "Sure." Wang Shen quickly took out his mobile phone and edited a long message explaining what Su Chen said. After sending it, Wang Shen breathed a sigh of relief. He did everything he could. The rest has nothing to do with him. Wang Shen looked at Su Chen and said gratefully, "Thank you, Mr. Su." Su Chen smiled. Wang Shen asked, "Mr. Su, where do you want to go now?" Su Chen thought for a moment and asked, "Do you know where there is a magical medicine?" Wang Shen was startled. Then, his eyes lit up. "I know a place, but I'm not sure if it's there. Let's go and have a look." Su Chen nodded. The car started again soon. On the other side, suburban manor, 2nd floor of the villa. Meng DQ looked at Wang Shen's text message on his phone and trembled all over. Could it be that his beloved apprentice really wanted to hurt him? He listened carefully to the movement outside. Then, he quietly moved his energy to the small meridians. The next second, the familiar pain came instantly. Even the meridians and danshan, which had not hurt before, began to twitch and crack. Puff. The blood in his chest boiled, and he couldn't help but spurted out a mouthful of blood. Meng Deqiu covered his mouth tightly, not daring to make too much noise. He was afraid that, if he showed something strange, he would be discovered by the two people outside. A trace of hatred appeared in Meng Deqiu's eyes. Sure enough, the young man brought by Wang Shen did not lie. He was deceived by the Ningmei grass. Meng Deqiu checked carefully again. Sure enough, he found a mysterious toxin in his body again. This toxin will make him slowly dizzy and gradually lose control of his limbs. There is something wrong with Jing Zixu. His good apprentice Wei Chenke has an even bigger problem. What should I do? Meng Deqiu looked grim. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the pile of powder on the ground again. It was Su Chen's elixir, but it was crushed by Wei Chenke. Meng Deqiu supported himself and slowly got down to the ground. He squatted down and gathered the elixir that was crushed into powder together. At this moment, he no longer cared whether there was dust or not. He raised his head and ate all the crumbs. He even licked the residue on the ground. Compared with life, dignity and hygiene are not important. Meng Deqiu sat back on the wooden couch only after he was sure that all the dregs of the elixir had been taken. Suddenly, a cool energy began to flow through his body. Instantly, Meng Deqiu's mind became much clearer. As this energy passed by, the originally aching meridians gradually calmed down. There was even a sense of healing. The hidden toxins also began to shrink and dissipate. Meng Deqiu's face was overjoyed. He turned his eyes and then deliberately forced out a mouthful of blood. Puff. Meng Deqiu did not control himself, but deliberately amplified the sound. Click. The door opened instantly. Wei Chenke and Jing Zixu rushed in at the first time. Master, what's wrong with you? Wei Chenke seemed to be concerned. Meng Deqiu clearly saw that when he just entered the door, his face was full of smiles. Get out. I'm just taking care of my body, Meng Deqiu said deliberately. However, this time Wei Chenke did not listen to him. Master, I think you should let Dr. Jing check you. Wei Chenke and Jing Zixu came over. Get out. I can do it myself, Meng Deqiu shouted again. Wei Chenke's smile widened. Master, don't do anything stupid. Meng Deqiu was sure that there was definitely something wrong with his apprentice. Puff. Meng Deqiu spurted out another mouthful of blood. My meridians and Anshan have not healed at all. Instead, the injury is more serious. You lied to me. My head is so dizzy. Why is my body out of control? Meng Deqiu was shaky and seemed to be about to fall off the wooden couch at any time. Wei Chenke suddenly laughed. Ha ha ha. Dr. Jing, your Ningmei grass and Duanju powder are really powerful. This old immortal, even the immortals on earth can't stand it. Jing Zixu stroked his beard and smiled. The main reason is that Meng Deqiu is half useless, otherwise I wouldn't have the chance to give him medicine. Meng Deqiu widened his eyes and stared at his beloved apprentice. Wei Chenke, why are you doing this to me? I'm your master. Wei Chenke sneered. What a shit master. He's just a useless god. If you were healthy, I would still respect you as a master. As a result, you are half dead. Not only can't you help me, but you spend a lot of money every day to hang on to your life. The money you spend was originally the inheritance left to me. You spend my money every day. Don't I feel bad? Meng Deqiu looked sad. You can't know a person's heart by knowing his face. He really has a good apprentice. Jing Zixu sneered. Hurry up and do it. Kill Meng Deqiu. Divided according to our agreement. His inheritance belongs to you, and his body belongs to me. The body of the land immortal, in the hands of my ghost doctor, may be able to make something extraordinary. Meng Deqiu was stunned. The price his apprentice paid to hire the ghost doctor Jing Zixu was actually his own body. How ridiculous. A tear flowed from the corner of Meng Deqiu's eyes. Just now, when Wang Shen and Su Chen were there, he believed in this precious apprentice so much. Now it is proved that Su Chen is right. He just hurt his brain. Wei Chenke had a smug smile on his face. He approached Meng Deqiu. Master, you have spent a lot of my inheritance in the past 2 or 3 years. You should be content. See you in the next life. As he spoke, Wei Chenke raised his palm high and struck out. The next second, something strange happened. A terrifying aura suddenly burst out from Meng Deqiu. Wei Chenke's face changed instantly. Finally finished coding. Good night, everyone. Chapter 548. Just a land immortal. Wei Chengke looked at Meng Diqiu in shock. He attacked with a palm, and a terrifying aura suddenly burst out. Bang! Wei Chengke blocked with both hands, but he flew out directly. Puff! He hit the wall hard, and fell to the ground. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out suddenly. He stared at Meng Diqiu with disbelief. Did you pretend to be injured just now? You are not poisoned? Wei Chengke suddenly lowered his head, and looked at Su Chen's pill, that he had crushed. I saw that the ground was already clean. At this moment, a chill rose from behind Wei Chengke. Bastard, you ruined my big plan. On the side, Ghost Dr. Jing Zixu was also shocked by this reversal. Ah. He looked terrified, and turned around and ran. However, although he had good medical skills, he did not have much martial arts practice. Meng Diqiu raised his hand. A stream of terrifying energy shot directly through Jing Zixu's throat. Ugh. Jing Zixu covered his throat, and fell to the ground. Wei Chengke was shocked and scared. He stared at Meng Diqiu, thinking of ideas frantically in his heart. Bang! Wei Chengke knelt on the ground. Master, please spare my life. It was all Jing Zixu. He forced me to do this. I was poisoned by him. I really have no choice. Snap. 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 Wei Chengke slapped himself hard. Both cheeks were instantly red and swollen, and tears were rolling in his eyes. Seeing this scene, Meng Diqiu's eyes showed a hint of tenderness. Master, please spare me this time. Wei Chengke said, while kneeling and crawling towards Meng Diqiu. Meng Diqiu shook his body and stood up. He stared at his apprentice and asked, is what you said true? Wei Chengke crawled closer and said, really? If you don't believe me, master, check if there is any poison in my body. As he spoke, Wei Chengke looked up. Suddenly, he raised his hand suddenly. A sharp dagger stabbed towards Meng Diqiu. The dagger glowed with a blue light, and it was obviously poisoned. However, an old hand firmly grasped Wei Chengke's wrist. Wei Chengke was horrified. This Meng Diqiu was prepared. Little beast, do you think I will believe you again, after you deceived me once? Wei Chengke's face changed drastically. He hurriedly kicked Meng Diqiu. Bang! Meng Diqiu's body did not move, but his hand suddenly exerted force. Snap! Wei Chengke's wrist was directly broken. A poisoned dagger instantly fell into Meng Diqiu's hand. Puff! Meng Diqiu turned his hand and the dagger went straight into Wei Chengke's throat. Wei Chengke covered his bleeding throat and fell to the ground weakly. His eyes were wide open and his face was full of regret. He regretted that he should have cleaned up all the residues of the pill before leaving the room just now. Puff! Meng Diqiu spurted out a mouthful of blood. Then, he spit out several more mouthfuls of blood. Not only in his mouth, but also all over Meng Diqiu's body. Blood was constantly oozing out. He staggered and his face was pale. Although Su Chen's elixir helped him stabilize his meridians and anshan, but the luck of killing Wei Chengke and Jing Zixu still caused his meridians and anshan to break out completely. Meng Diqiu staggered and sat down beside the wooden couch to stabilize his injuries. Then, he took out his mobile phone and called Wang Shen quickly. After the call was connected, Meng Diqiu put the phone on the table and pressed the hands-free. Wang Shen, this is Meng Diqiu. Where are you? Come back and help me heal my injuries. Meng Diqiu said with a heavy breath. However, there was a silence on Wang Shen's side. Then, Wang Shen's somewhat embarrassed voice sounded. Mr. Meng, Mr. Su said, if you want to treat it, come to him. He doesn't have time to make a second trip. Meng Diqiu's face turned black. Since he became a land immortal, he has been flattered by a group of people wherever he goes, and no one has ever dared to treat him in this way. This Su Chen. But thinking about it, Meng Diqiu also felt that his previous attitude was indeed a bit too much. He took a deep breath. Okay, give me an address, and I'll find you now. After Wang Shen told Meng Diqiu an address, he hung up the phone. Meng Diqiu rushed out. His meridians and anshan were about to collapse, and he had to hurry up to treat them. On the other side, Wang Shen drove the car with a hesitant look on his face. Mr. Su, isn't it a bit too much to let Mr. Meng come to us? Su Chen said coldly, no matter how much, can it be as much as him? At least, I didn't let him wait for more than an hour. Wang Shen's face was quite embarrassed. But, Mr. Meng, after all, is a land immortal. Wang Shen whispered. Su Chen smiled coldly. What's so great about a land immortal? He was almost killed by his own apprentice. If he doesn't want to be treated, then don't come to me. Wang Shen smiled helplessly. It's true that you can offend anyone, but you can't offend the doctor. Especially, Su Chen is a miracle doctor who can bring the dead back to life. Wang Shen hesitated and asked, Mr. Su, aren't you afraid that after Mr. Meng is cured, he will cause trouble to you? Su Chen said lightly, he is just a land immortal, and he is also an injured god. Even if I treat him, he will not recover all his skills immediately. What is there to be afraid of such a half-crippled god? Wang Shen was completely speechless. The big brother next to him was really too arrogant. Even if the god is crippled, it is not something that the Xianshan realm can provoke. Su Chen smiled and did not explain. He has touched the real gods of the Bei family, so how could he be afraid of such a half-crippled one? Wang Shen sighed and said, alas. Fortunately, Mr. Meng survived and was not harmed by his evil disciple. Su Chen smiled. Thinking of the crushed pill, Su Chen had already guessed how Meng Dqiu escaped. This old man really has a strong desire to survive. Soon, Wang Shen stopped the car. The two got out of the car. Su Chen looked at the shop in front of him, a little confused. Is this the place you said there might be a magical medicine? Su Chen asked with a puzzled look. Because the shop in front of him had 5 big words written on it. Quinian Pharmacy. This Quinian Pharmacy is also a chain store, with more than a dozen stores in the provincial capital. Yesterday, before Su Chen went to Qianjintang on Cheoang Avenue to buy medicinal materials, he also went to the Quinian Pharmacy there. The result disappointed Su Chen, because the medicines in Quinian Pharmacy are not of good quality, and there are also frauds. Wang Shen saw Su Chen's expression, and was a little confused. Mr. Su, do you know this Quinian Pharmacy? Su Chen briefly told about his experience yesterday. Wang Shen suddenly realized it. He smiled and said, Mr. Su, don't worry. The Quinian Pharmacy in other streets may be fraudulent, but my friend's place is definitely fine. Su Chen looked puzzled. Aren't these all the same chain stores? Wang Shen smiled and said, Mr. Su, this store is the main store. Moreover, my friend is the store manager here, so you can rest assured. As for the situation of other stores, alas. Wang Shen sighed. There is a problem inside Quinian. Su Chen nodded. As they talked, the two walked in. As soon as they entered the door, Su Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 549. Even the gods have this requirement. Su Chen entered the pharmacy, and his eyes lit up immediately. This shop was indeed different from the Quinian Pharmacy he visited yesterday. Not only was the shop area much larger, but the key was that the aroma of the medicine was much stronger. Just by smelling it, Su Chen could be sure that the medicinal materials in this pharmacy were all good. In fact, they were not inferior to those in Qianjintang. Seeing Su Chen's face, Wang Shen smiled and said, Mr. Su, how is it? I didn't lie to you, did I? Su Chen nodded. This pharmacy is indeed not bad. As he spoke, Su Chen walked around the medicinal materials area. What surprised him was that he actually found several medicinal materials here that Qianjintang didn't have. Although they were not magical medicines, they were already top-grade medicinal materials. Su Chen picked out a few medicinal materials and asked the clerk to pack them up. He turned to look at Wang Shen. Where is the spiritual medicine you mentioned? Wang Shen smiled and said, the spiritual medicine will definitely not be placed on the medicine shelf. The spiritual medicine I mentioned is my friend's personal collection. They are all his treasures, and old Chu is very rare. Mr. Su, I'm only responsible for calling him out for you, but I'm really not sure whether I can let him sell it to you. Su Chen nodded. It doesn't matter. I'm already grateful to Mr. Wang for meeting the spiritual medicine collector. Wang Shen smiled and took out his mobile phone to make a call. Soon, an old man in his early 50s came out from the inner door. Wang Shen, you came to me without telling me in advance. The old man's voice was loud. It seemed that he was quite familiar with Wang Shen. Wang Shen hurriedly said, Mr. Su, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Chu Hantang, the manager of the Zuanian Pharmacy head office. Old Chu, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Su Chen Su. This time I came to you because Mr. Su has something to discuss with you. Chu Hanzhang was slightly stunned. He looked at Su Chen and asked, "Young man, what do you want to talk to me about?" Su Chen said calmly, "Mr. Chu, I heard from Mr. Wang that you have a few spiritual medicines in your hands. I wonder if you can give them to me." Chu Hanzhang's face changed, and he looked at Wang Shen. Wang Shen smiled awkwardly, feeling a little embarrassed. Chu Hanzhang said in a deep voice, "I don't know, Mr. Su, what spiritual medicine do you need?" Su Chen said, "As long as it is a spiritual medicine, I'm happy to take it, if you are willing to give it up. Of course, it would be best if it is something that is beneficial to the body, such as bone-setting stone flowers, dripping blood vines, and soul-burning black Ganoderma." Chu Hanzhang smiled. It seems that Mr. Su really knows a little about spiritual medicines. Su Chen nodded. "I'm also a medical practitioner." Chu Hanzhang was slightly stunned. However, he smiled and shook his head and said, "But, don't even think about the spiritual medicines here." Su Chen said, "Mr. Chu, the price is not a problem." Chu Hanzhang shook his head. "It's not a problem of price. I have loved medicinal materials all my life, and I have exhausted my life's efforts to find two spiritual medicines. So, I'm sorry." Su Chen's face showed regret. Wang Shen was a little anxious. He really wanted to please Su Chen. Wang Shen said, "Old Chu, given our relationship, can't you give up one of them?" Chu Hanzhang refused and said, "If it's something else, it's okay. But spiritual medicine, forget it." Su Chen thought about it and said again, "Mr. Chu, in terms of price, I can buy it at twice the market price. For Su Chen now, more money is just a number. But spiritual medicine can be transformed into real strength. With strength, if you meet a few families like the Bei family, you can quickly earn back the money. This is called fighting to support the war." However, facing Su Chen's high price, Chu Hanzhang still refused. "Sorry, this is not about money." Su Chen was helpless. Since the other party is unwilling, he can't force him. At this time, Wang Shen's eyes turned. He hurriedly said, "Old Chu, haven't you been looking for a miracle doctor? I tell you, Mr. Su is the miracle doctor. If you sell the magic medicine to Mr. Su may be willing to help you cure your illness." Chu Hanzhang was stunned. He glanced at Su Chen and looked him up and down. Haha. Chu Hanzhang laughed out loud. "Old Wang, are you mistaken? Mr. Su's age is not much younger than my son. At this age, I'm afraid he hasn't graduated from medical school yet. Don't talk nonsense, just to cheat me of the magic medicine." Wang Shen's face changed slightly. He hurriedly said, "Old Chu, don't talk nonsense. The medical skills of Dr. Su are not comparable to those medical school students. Even the miracle Dr. Bincheng on the Saint Hand list has to call Dr. Su his master. Vice President Zhang Zhehong of the Central Hospital wants to make Mr. Su the chief expert." Chu Hanzhang heard this, and a trace of anger appeared on his face. HMPH. He snorted coldly, "Old Wang, you know I'm anxious to find a miracle doctor, but you still joke like this. If you do this again, don't blame me for turning against you regardless of our friendship." At this time, Su Chen slowly said, "Mr. Chu, I'm indeed good at medicine. If you don't believe it, you can let me help you treat the patient first, and then transfer the spiritual medicine to me." Chu Hanzhang's face was gloomy, and he shouted angrily, "Do you think I'm a fool? Or, Wang Shen, this old fool, has said too much, and even you believe it? The miracle doctors on the Saint Hand list all have decades of experience. A young man like you is not qualified to be someone's apprentice. Don't mess with me anymore, or I'll drive you away." Chu Hanzhang was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. In his opinion, Wang Shen and Su Chen were just trying to cheat him of the spiritual medicine, and they would do anything. At this time, whoosh, a figure suddenly rushed into Quanyuan Pharmacy. This figure was so fast that he was in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Several people were shocked. When they saw the man's appearance clearly, they were even more shocked. This person was not someone else, but the land immortal Meng Diqiu. However, at this time, Meng Diqiu did not have the temperament of master of the divine realm. Instead, he was covered in blood and looked extremely miserable. Chu Hanzhang was already angry, and when he saw Meng Diqiu rushing in with blood all over his body, he was immediately furious. He immediately shouted angrily, "Who are you? You are so dirty, and you broke into my Quanyuan Pharmacy. Meng Diqiu glared at Chu Hanzhang fiercely. In an instant, Chu Hanzhang felt like falling into an ice cellar, and his blood cooled down. What a terrible look. Wang Shen also hurriedly said, "Old Chu, don't talk nonsense. This is Meng Diqiu, Mr. Meng." Chu Hanzhang was stunned, and then his eyes showed fear. He had heard that Wang Shen had a distant relative who was a master of the divine realm, named Meng Diqiu. It turned out to be Meng. "Mr. Meng, sorry, I didn't know it was you." Chu Hanzhang hurriedly apologized. However, Meng Diqiu didn't even look at him, but stared at Su Chen. "Thank you, Mr. Su, for saving my life. Otherwise, I would have died at the hands of that little beast." Meng Diqiu clasped his fists towards Su Chen. Su Chen had a blank expression on his face. "Now, do you finally believe me?" Meng Diqiu thought of his previous words and deeds, and his old face suddenly turned red. He bowed and clasped his fists. "Please help Mr. Su and treat my injuries." For a moment, Chu Hanzhang was stunned. He stared at Su Chen blankly. Su Chen, is he really a miracle doctor? Even the powerful gods ask for help from this miracle doctor. The next chapter will be around 2 o'clock. Let's go to bed first. Chapter 550. You want me to kneel? Chu Hanzhang was a little confused. In the past, he had heard Wang Shen talk about it. Although Meng Diqiu was a powerful god, he was seriously injured and had not recovered for many years. However, now he asked Su Chen to treat him. In this case, Su Chen's medical skills must be extraordinary. At this moment, Chu Hanzhang suddenly regretted it. It seemed that what he had just said was too much. Su Chen looked at Meng Diqiu indifferently. Then, he shook his head slowly. Meng Diqiu was stunned and didn't understand what Su Chen meant. At this time, Su Chen said indifferently, "I said, when you regret it, take the pill, and then kneel down and beg me. I will take action. Kneel." Hearing this, Wang Shen and Chu Hanzhang's eyes widened instantly. Su Chen's words were really too bold. He dared to let a land immortal kneel down to him. The two hurriedly looked at Meng Diqiu. Sure enough, Meng Diqiu's face was also full of disbelief. "What did you say?" Meng Diqiu's expression became gloomy, and he asked word by word. Su Chen said coldly, "I said, you have to kneel down and beg me." Meng Diqiu's face turned pale. He stared at Su Chen. "You saved my life, but how dare you make such a request?" Su Chen sneered. "Why not? Just because you are in the god realm. I was invited by Wang Shen to come to your house to treat your injuries, but I was left there waiting again and again. I kindly pointed out the problem to you, but you believed others and drove me away. Why should I rush to treat you when you treated me like this? When I left your house, I left a pill, which was already a way out for you. With such a kindness, you still want to fight with me?" Su Chen said one sentence after another, making Meng Diqiu's old face blush. But he still stared at Su Chen, with terrifying energy surging all over his body. It seemed that he would take action at any time to force Su Chen to treat him. The terrifying pressure was overwhelming, and Wang Shen and Chu Hanzhang retreated again and again. However, Su Chen did not move at all. He sneered and said, "What? You want to fight me and play hardball?" As he spoke, Su Chen raised his hand and struck out with a palm. The flame energy was raised by the 9 extremes, and it instantly broke through the boundary of the divine realm. Then, it pressed towards Meng Diqiu. In an instant, Meng Diqiu's eyes showed fear. Although he was in the divine realm, he was only slightly stronger than the innate realm due to his serious injuries. Moreover, his meridians and Anshan were on the verge of collapse, and he could not withstand a battle at the level of the divine realm at all. Meng Diqiu hurriedly resisted before he finished speaking. However, Su Chen's terrifying energy instantly bombarded him. Puff! Meng Diqiu opened his mouth and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Then, the whole person flew out more than 10 meters away and fell heavily to the ground. On the side, Wang Shen and Chu Hanzhang were completely dumbfounded. Gah! The two swallowed their saliva together. Although they knew that Meng Diqiu was seriously injured, he was a strong man in the divine realm after all. Moreover, Meng Diqiu had just killed his Xianshan realm disciple, which showed that his fighting power was not bad at all. But even so, he was still defeated by Su Chen. Wang Shen clearly felt that the palm that Su Chen used to knock Meng Diqiu away was absolutely powerful at the level of the divine realm. A divine realm in his early 20s. How terrifying would Su Chen's realm be if given time? Boom boom boom. Wang Shen's heart was beating wildly. At this time, Meng Diqiu got up from the ground. He looked at Su Chen in shock. At this moment, he finally understood what Su Chen's confidence was in saying such harsh words to him. That was Su Chen's own powerful strength. He was covered in blood and staggered in front of Su Chen. Bang! In the shocked eyes of Wang Shen and Chu Hanzhang, Meng Diqiu knelt down in front of Su Chen. Mr. Su, I, Meng Diqiu, am arrogant and ignorant. I have received your kindness, but do not know how to repay it. Please forgive me. Please be kind and save my life. I'm willing to obey your orders in the future. Hearing this, Su Chen's eyes showed a trace of satisfaction. This is the effect he wanted. He is just a god realm, and a half-wasted god realm. What is there to be arrogant about? Wang Shen breathed a sigh of relief. Although Mr. Meng knelt down, at least he was able to save his life. This is also a happy ending. On the side, Chu Hanzhang was a little confused. He glanced at Su Chen secretly, unable to hide his shock. Su Chen could actually make a god realm strongman kneel down and beg, which is amazing. Mr. Chu, can I use the medical room in your store? Su Chen turned his head and looked at Chu Hanzhang and asked. Chu Hanzhang's face was immediately filled with smiles. Yes, yes. Mr. Su, you can use it however you want. What herbs do you need? Tell me and I'll pick them out for you. At this time, Chu Hanzhang's face no longer had the arrogance before, but was like a lackey. Su Chen looked at him strangely, but Chu Hanzhang seemed not to notice and still had a smile on his face. On the side, Wang Shen wanted to laugh, but was too embarrassed to do so. He came up to Chu Hanzhang and whispered, Old Chu, Mr. Su is not even as good as a student in a medical school. Don't let him ruin your medical room. Chu Hanzhang's old face turned red. Get out. Don't bother me. Su Chen smiled. Then, he asked Meng Diqiu to lie down in the medical room. Then he wrote a prescription and handed it to Chu Hanzhang. Mr. Chu, please help me get these herbs. Okay. Mr. Su. Chu Hanzhang respectfully took the prescription and ran to get the herbs. He was very quick and quickly prepared all the herbs, then hurried to the clinic. Chu Hanzhang didn't want to waste any time because he wanted to see Su Chen's medical skills. In the medical room, Meng Diqiu was lying on the bed. His shirt had been removed. He could see that blood was constantly oozing out of countless pores on his body, dyeing him into a bloody man. Chu Hanzhang also knew some medical skills. He took a quick look at Meng Diqiu's injuries and said in shock, Mr. Meng's meridians and ancient have collapsed. This level of injury is probably difficult for gods to heal. Su Chen said lightly, gods can't heal it, but I can. Chu Hanzhang was stunned. Su Chen didn't explain anymore. Instead, he casually took out a handful of silver needles. He raised his hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, 7 silver needles were accurately inserted around Meng Diqiu's danshan. He raised his hand again, and there were 7 more. Then he raised his hand again, and there were 7 more. 49 silver needles almost surrounded Meng Diqiu's danshan. Su Chen struck out with a palm. In an instant, 49 silver needles. The tails instantly turned red. A magical force field was formed, and Meng Diqiu only felt that his danshan no longer had the pain of collapse. Chu Hanzhang widened his eyes. Could this be the lost acupuncture magic, the 7-star solidifying needle? That's quite insightful. Su Chen glanced at him. Then, Su Chen continued to apply acupuncture. This time, the acupuncture method was different again. Chu Hanzhang murmured, this is a shanking Tang Mei needle. Su Chen continued. 9 extremes turning life needle. Chu Hanzhang screamed again. In just a few minutes, he had seen 3 lost medical skills. At this moment, he no longer had any doubts about Su Chen's medical skills. Don't wait for the next chapter. It will probably be after 3 o'clock. If I can't hold on any longer, I'll go to bed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.